We're live now.
And now we are. Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to the Counselor's Corner. It's Monday night, so you know what that means. Another conscious conversation about the shit that separates us and the stuff that can bring us together. Tonight, the ladies have the helm. You know me as Mofo. I've got Anita and Lakeisha is here. We've got Dave and Herb, are taking a little bit of a backseat while we talk about toxic masculinity. So, David put up a post and he hit on four topics that we want to try to reach tonight. And here's my interpretation of that. We talked about men attempting to take control because they control finances. And so for me, that would be a financial manipulation. Unfair division of responsibilities. Like they said in his video, you have both a man and a woman is working, but maybe the woman has to come home and she still has a plethora of things that she has to do while the man is doing nothing. No reciprocation of feelings, talking about supporting one another while we're listening, to their problems, their woes, and all that. I know, right? While we're listening to them, is some of them that are not responsive to us and give us what we need as far as that. And then the one that has everybody in the uproar. I know you too. Whose body is it? Does your body really belong to you, or does your body belong to your partner? I'm sure the other ladies that are on the panel with me are going to have some other points that they'd like to bring up. But the first thing that I'd like to go on record as saying, first of all, hello to everybody. I'm sorry. Hello to everybody that's
Good evening.
here. We have Dave in the building. We have Herb here. We got Anita. We got Lakeisha. So I guess everybody can just take a minute to just say hello to everybody while I get this little one together.
Got Willie in here too. Willie Price Speaks is
Is
in.
Willie here? And then the
Pardon
party
my
just got
tardiness. I have not
started.
dropped the
Okay.
link in the.
Okay.
There's a link in the chat. Anybody that's looking to come up to the panel, you are more than welcome, so long as we have space. And of course, I am the co-host of the show, along with David Glover. My name is Herbert Lewis, aka the Big Bad Wolf, and we're gonna be sitting back and let the ladies take the helm tonight, as Saria so eloquently stated.
And so let's start it off. Here's the first thing, because I don't like a whole bunch of dead air. So the first thing that I want to make clear just for me, I don't know how anybody else feels about it. Even though we're talking about toxic masculinity, I think that it's important to point out that there's a difference between, toxic masculinity and just masculinity. When I want my men masculine. Hey, the assertiveness, the strength, all of that. I want all of that. I know how anybody else feels about that. So when we're talking about toxic masculinity, for me, a lot of times when a person throws that out, they throw the statement out as a response to not liking what someone has said, or just wanting to be difficult. And I'm just being real about that, because I've heard people throw that term out, and in my mind, if I'm looking at the situation, that's not what I saw. But a lot of times we live in a society that we'll give anything a label. And so if we don't like it, we're going to label it as the most negative thing that we can, and we're going to browbeat people with it. And that's not what I am trying to do. What I'm trying to do is really denote the difference between, between someone who is just being a man, and between a man just being a man and taking on the responsibilities of a man. And when it goes to the deep, where it becomes toxic, where it becomes controlling, where it has to be his way and no other way at all. So how does everybody feel about that? That's where I'm at when I'm talking about toxic masculinity.
No, I agree. It's often used as, and I'll point out, I'll probably mention his name throughout the broadcast. Kevin Samuels, what he calls it is sign language, and sign language essentially is shame, insult, guilt, and the need to be right. So and when we're on these panels, we talk about a lot of things, and some of them are very, very sensitive. And our object isn't to ridicule, and I think it comes across as that to a lot of people. And what we're just trying to do is we're trying to get to the root cause of a lot of different issues. And our show is not a one-stop shop solution. Our show is is merely just a tool so we can excavate everything that's going on in Black America, because there's just not one issue. And I think everybody on the panel could point out to a separate issue that we all need to come together and just work on. So, children like the one that Saria is holding her grandchild inherit a better world than what we had.
And for me, that's up to us. The world that the children inherit is definitely up to the adults. Right now, I'm responsible, or I feel responsible for for who she's going to be, or to help shape who she's going to be. And so it's my agenda to shape her to be a person that learns to love everybody and to trust everybody. I don't want her to have any bitterness anywhere, but I do want her to be able to recognize toxic people, men and women. And for her, it's going to be much more important for her to be able to recognize, when a situation has become toxic. So, Anita, well, Dave, what's your take? What did you think about what I said in the beginning as far as separating, making sure to separate masculinity from toxic masculinity, and that there is a definite difference?
Yeah, it's definitely a difference, and I think one of the key things is when it becomes toxic is when you kind of using power because you're a man to kind of say, because you're a man, this is how things are supposed to happen. Like you had said with finances, maybe you're a guy that's the breadwinner, so it's kind of an imbalance of power. It's kind of imbalance of power if you make more money and you can go out and say, hey, I just bought this motorcycle or whatever the case is, and then you as the woman, you might go out and buy a nice pair of shoes, but he questions that, like, why did you buy that? But he can do whatever he wants. So like you said, it's a difference of being masculine, holding up, running your household and leading by example. But when it comes to kind of putting others down and you using your power over that, that's not cool.
Yeah. Willie, what do you got on that? Can you hear me?
I'm just listening right now. I'm taking mental notes right now. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
you got you kind of delay.
I'm just taking mental notes right now. I'm saving all my ammunition for the end of the show. If I have any.
Well, see, here go the thing, and that's exactly why I made the distinction between masculinity and toxic masculinity, because we ain't trying to fight with you, brother. I don't want to have to pull out no ammo to have a conversation with
I
you.
know. I'm just.
So this is exactly why we're noting the difference
Dave, no, I'm
between
just messing with you.
masculinity and toxic masculinity. I know you like that, bro. So now that I know that you just playing, I got it. But yeah, we got to get that distinction before we start. Cause I don't like.
I believe that I don't have anything to say right now. I'm just kind of listening. Right.
Got you.
I'm just kind of listening right
Anita,
now. I'm
I'm
kind of
sorry.
getting everybody's view and see where I'm just gonna get in where I can fit in right now. I'm just listening.
Well, Willie,
we got you. Anita,
let me ask you this question then. Let me ask you this question, Willie. Have you seen the Gillette commercial?
Okay.
Do you know the one I'm talking about? Okay.
Us the man can get.
No, I have no
Correct.
clue.
That's Irish Spring.
No, it was a Gillette commercial. They
what is it? What's going on?
What was the commercial?
It aired, I think, early last year, maybe the year before, and essentially what they were talking about is what you hit on earlier. The way. Oh, I'm sorry, that was Lakia that hit on that. The way that the phrase is "boys will be boys" when one was bullying the other younger boy, or one was trying to catcall a woman, or things of that nature that had usually been associated with masculinity, that the world is trying to shine a light on and bring about that and classify that as toxic.
Just to if it's okay.
Harassment or
Mm-hmm.
or degrading.
So if I can chime in, It's the question for me is when I was reading about it, because I didn't really understand what it meant when I was hearing it. And the one thing is that this one guy did an article, and what captured my attention was where does it begin? Because it doesn't just pop up if someone just has this starts acting toxic. It comes from situations that could happen in their childhood. And for this one example he shared was, he said he was going on a trip and he said to his son, hey, you're the man of the house now, take care of the house, hold the house down. But he didn't realize, just subconsciously, like unconsciously, I guess what's the word I'm trying to, unconsciously or unintentionally, he was pretty much putting the mother and his wife's leadership down. There's times that things are said, and he wouldn't have thought that was a problem saying that, because he's thinking he's giving his son the reins. But unconsciously, he's saying to his son, a woman can't be a leader, only a man. So now that I'm gone, you're taking over. And that's and so I believe it happens starting at youth, along with, friends, being in your groups of, and I'm not going to say just dads say this, mothers say this to their kids as well, is, stop acting like a pussy. Stop, can y'all hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Stop, like I said,
Yeah, we got you.
Stop acting like a bitch, whatever. Those are things that, to me, we shouldn't be saying as adults to our children, period. Life and death is in the power of the tongue, and what we speak, we should be speaking life to our kids, period. So as men and as women, we do unconsciously speak things into our kids' life, and they grow up thinking it's okay, and the way that I'm thinking about it is normal, and actually it's not. You begin taking that thought process and now demoralizing a woman or a man. So our words can be very toxic. It starts from the beginning with our words and the things that we teach our children and the things that we say to them.
And so I agree with that. I think that it is and this is just for me, when I hear a man telling his son, hey, you got the helm now, I want you to take care of your mom, I don't in any way look at that as that man conveying to his son that his mother can't control it. I think that for me, that is a moment that is needed between man and son, where the father is, training his son. There is a difference in how women talk to their sons and how men talk to their sons. And a lot of times, and I'm just putting it out there, we can treat them very soft. We're not allowing them to go through a lot of the experiences that boys go through. And so when we hear men talking to them, and it sounds like they're being harsh, or, because it can be construed a million different ways. Sometimes for me, it comes down to, when I'm looking at something, is glass half empty or is it half full? That's just for me. For me, that's a stretch. I can see where someone could interpret it that way, but as far as telling the son, because that's also another way of, like I said, a father, instilling what he knows about masculinity into his son, that he needs to, step up and help his mom out. That's how I've always viewed that. Guys, did you feel any certain type of way when she said that, as far as what what, because I absolutely agree with you, Lakeisha, when it comes to the, hey, don't be a pussy, don't do this. But even that, just what I just said, we talk to our kids differently. There's a certain way that men are going to talk to their sons. We're not ever going to understand it or appreciate it. And I think the important part is to, maybe an explanation needs to be in, so that it's not construed as, I'm telling you that your mom can't do shit. But, to just say that, hey, this is what the message is, I think that that's toxic on our side, to say that this is what the message is anytime you say this to your son. Because other than that, men do still have to instill lessons in their son. And we're not going to agree on how that sounds all the time. You get what I'm saying? Like, that makes sense. Like,
well, I do. This wasn't my right, but that wasn't my opinion. That was from a man. that said he realizes that, and he says subtly, these are like subtle messages. So that wasn't from me per se. That was from an article that was on how toxic masculinity traits start. So that is one of
Well,
the websites. So yeah, so that, I mean, I give it to, I do think that there are conversations that go on between a father and a son, same as a mother and a daughter. Absolutely. I do agree. But in that conversation, is it demeaning a woman or demoralizing? You know what I mean? Like saying that a woman cannot be a leader. And that's the part that just caught my attention.
Okay,
One
if I
well, in
may
part.
a
jump,
nutshell, in a nutshell, I feel like that's a man's way of conveying his expectations to his son. Much in the same manner that we would tell our daughters, this is how a lady acts. It's not so much as a toxic interchange, so much as an exchange of expectation. They just don't go around the block with it. There is definitely a definitive difference between masculinity, because we want masculinity, versus toxic, the emphasis on the word toxic masculinity. That's not, to me, an example of that. That's a simple example of conveying your expectations from one to another within that realm. Because we tell our daughters this is how a lady acts,
But when
and
we say that,
that
go ahead, I'm
that
sorry.
can be viewed as, that can be viewed as toxic by someone who's
Mhm.
um looking for that, when in
Yep.
fact all I'm
Right.
doing
And
is
that was my point. Right.
I'm
Hmm.
I'm sending my expectation across to my daughter that I expect you to act with decorum and so on
Hmm.
and so forth if I have a daughter. So that's the difference in interpretation. That's not, to me, that's not a toxic exchange. A
If I may
toxic
jump in here,
exchange is, okay, go
go
ahead.
ahead, Scorpio T.
I was
No,
gonna
I
say
don't
if
want to interrupt. What I want to do is I want to actually bring what you guys are talking about together. There's two movies I think are both excellent movies, and it'll kind of encapsulate what you ladies are talking about. One is Gran Torino with Clint Eastwood. The other is The
Hmm.
Road to Perdition. I don't know if anybody's ever seen those movies, but I would highly
I've seen
recommend
both
those
of
movies.
those. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in
I'll give you, I'm sorry, go ahead. I can't see
oh,
today, y'all, so I thought you was done
that's okay.
talking.
That's okay. The other point I was going to make to Lakia, whatever website that was, what I would urge you to do is go back and look and see who that audience caters to. Because often with a lot of blogs, whoever that they are catering, whoever their main crowd is, they write for that crowd. So while the gentleman or the woman who wrote that article may have a valid point, they may have written it with a slant, similar to what Fox News does. They cater to conservatives. MSNBC caters to uh, liberals and Democrats. So I'm always cognizant of what I'm reading. I go back and I say who the author is, and I'll see what slant they're writing from. This is why I always caution people to know what source it is that you're reading from and what they're trying to do. Because everybody that writes, even a writer, is always trying to elicit some type of feelings to draw people to their cause.
See,
You know,
now,
go ahead.
So let me give you an example of what I mean when I say toxic
I can still
masculinity.
hear you
I
guys. I'm
think
just gonna go put her down.
okay.
Okay.
I think everyone has seen the movie Back to the Future. There was a guy in there, I believe his name was Biff
Yes.
or Riff or something
Biff.
like that.
Hmm.
When I speak of toxic masculinity, he is the classic
Absolutely.
embodiment of what I mean. So that
Right.
there's a definitive difference between masculine versus toxic masculinity. I think that was the 1985 version
That's an old
where
movie.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
it's an
no,
old
but
the guy
it's
movie.
said they
it's
are
it's a
old movies, but for
See, but
this
the thing that
conversation,
Can I
I
say?
think that,
for
oh, go ahead, Anita. I'm sorry.
So when I was reading up on this, there was a lot of interesting articles about it. So one of the points that people brought up was, what's an example of masculinity? So they were talking, it says traits traditionally viewed as masculine in Western society, our society, include strength, courage, independence, leadership, and assertiveness. Machismo is a form of masculinity that emphasizes power and is often associated with a disregard for
Machismo.
consequences and responsibility. So what do we mean when we say toxic masculinity? Um, a cultural concept of manliness that glorifies stoicism, strength, vir, I can't say that word, virility, and
Virility.
dominance.
Virility.
Yeah, and that is socially maladaptive or harmful to mental health. Men and women both suffer from toxic masculinity when toxic masculinity perpetuates expectations that are restrictive and traumatizing. So there's a definite there's manly, and then there's toxic. So when men actively avoid vulnerability, act on homophobic beliefs, ignore personal traumas, or exhibit prejudice behaviors against women, this contributes to the many larger societal problems, and that's such as gender-based violence, sexual assault, and gun violence. So if maybe that's why we have so much violence in the world, in our society today, because of
Well, I think
hyper
that something
masculinity and toxic
that was
masculinity.
interesting. I think something that was interesting that you said is that when it goes into being restrictive and traumatizing, which hits on the points that we listed earlier, as far as the financial manipulation, as, hey, I'm the breadwinner, so what I say goes because I control the finances. To me, while it is a masculine thing for a man to be a provider, it turns toxic when a man is now using the fact that he is the provider as the reason why things have to go, my way or the highway, sort of. So to me, that would be a difference in between a masculine trait that can turn toxic.
Just to follow up with something that Scorpio
You
T
agree
said,
on
and I'm
that? We
sure.
got
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Saria. Just to follow
no.
up something with what Scorpio T said, I'm sure most of us have at least seen or heard of the Karate Kid series. The sensei
We better
at
had.
the
We better had. I'm excommunicating somebody if they say that they ain't watched the Karate Kid, and I'm almost about to disown you if you have not watched Cobra Kai. But okay, I'm
well, you
sorry.
got
I
to disown
digress.
me. I'm sorry. But following what Scorpio T said, the sensei at the end of the movie when he was telling
Yes.
what's the name to sweep the leg, and he was saying he could beat him. He said he doesn't care to sweep the leg. And at the beginning of the second movie, his behavior towards the kid, that's definitely a sign of toxic masculinity because now, as Lakia and Saria was just speaking about, he's being overbearing and he's using his power and authority to control and manipulate.
Yeah, that was, and
I
he was
mean, you
that through the
can't
whole
do
thing, not just at that point. He was an example of when you're teaching someone. So when a person is toxic in that way, and then now they have dominion over their kid, you know what I'm saying? Because he was responsible for teaching, a whole class of kids. Basically, he cultivated a whole class of bullies in a school because his, strike first, no mercy, and all that shit that he had going on. But like Anita said, it came from, and I think like Lakia hit on, and the reason that I need to disown y'all for not watching Cobra Kai is because they actually go into what caused him to be the way that he is. Cobra Kai goes into
Oh, I
everyone's
watched Cobra
story
Kai. I watched it. It was
in this
back
day
in
and
the
Yeah,
age.
army.
And
It was back in
so
the army.
it
I was gonna
and
say
so
that's
it talks about,
probably what it
yeah.
was.
right. And so the things
It
that
was from
he
the army. Yeah,
experienced, from the army, were things from somebody that he respected, that he subsequently had to take up out this mofo, but he carried those lessons, and it like it ate him up. I feel like what he went through ate him up, and now he's responsible for teaching kids, and so now you have a whole generation of children that's following this dude that's really not whole and healed,
Right.
PTSD off the chain, like all this stuff is
See,
going on, and this is the
that's
person
it.
who's teaching your kids. So when we get to the point where we're sweeping the leg,
Right.
this is now when the kids themselves is like, well, wait a minute. I know we supposed to win, but at a certain point, the win doesn't mean anything if you've gotten it by what's the word I'm looking for? If you cheated to get it, the win doesn't
Right.
really mean anything. You haven't really achieved that goal. You're gonna kick somebody while they're down, in order for you to take that win.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was a good example. That's the
But
best example. Yeah.
one of the things that I want to do also highlight is that the toxic portion requires a negative action for it to become toxic. Like just like in the Karate Kid movie, even if you were just to compare the two senseis, the one that taught the Karate Kid was masculine, even when he was flipping his little bonsai tree. And the other guy whose name I can't remember was very
Mr.
toxic and
Miyagi.
everything. And Mr. Miyagi was he was just a manly man that understood, you know, we don't have to do this to be a man. And he was teaching the Karate Kid that. So the other hand required action, like you were talking about sweeping the leg. There's a negative action that came from that mentality. So you are definitely toxic. The negative actions that you do seek to oppress someone else or to um, I don't know exactly what word I'm looking for, but that negative action seeks to put someone else beneath you or down or something like that. Like Terrell said,
Oh well, yeah, he was trying to destroy
when
him.
you take
He was
He
your
no
was.
mercy.
finances, when you take your finances, just like you said, and now because I'm the breadwinner, you're gonna do as I say, and you make your wife or girlfriend or whoever beg for $1 so she can buy a loaf of bread to feed your children. That's super toxic. It requires a negative action.
See, real quick, and I know Brolic T came in, and I don't want to take up too much on that. But like you said, Sared, that's exactly what I was reading. So just also share with Herb. He's touching on a lot of things on this article. Like we said with the Karate Kid in Cobra Kai, he began now teaching these other young men and women that same toxic behavior. And it's not that the man could not say that to his son, but how are you saying it to your son? He's acknowledging it was not, and that's what he's doing. That in the sensei in Cobra Kai is what he's saying to them. I'm not saying that they shouldn't learn how to defend themselves, but they were angry, they were bitter. You know what I mean? And they were coming against the other people.
He is actually cultivating that. He's cultivating a win at by any means,
by any necessary, by any means
by any
necessary.
means necessary
Mm-hmm.
attitude. And so here's the thing: when we're talking about financial manipulation, we have
Mm-hmm.
to, since we understand it and we understand that this is a form, of toxic masculinity. When we have somebody that's saying, "Hey, since I'm the breadwinner and I pay all the bills, you need to do this." It seems to me that people would be able to understand more, or men would be able to understand more, the women, when we've taken the stance of getting financial independence for ourselves, because we don't want to be up under someone else's rule of saying this is how it has to go because I pay all the bills. That doesn't usually work out great for the person that's being said to.
Right.
For the person that's being dictated to because someone pays the bills, that's a really, and I've been in that position. I've worn a few hats. I'm almost 50. I'm 49 years old. So I've lived a full life, and I'm still living it, full of experiences that I've had to learn from. So I've played the role of a woman who was looking for a dude to just do shit for me. It was a completely toxic mentality that I had. And so that's just the bottom line. So it doesn't matter if that's how you were raised, if you believe that men is supposed to take care of you. Men are supposed to provide. That's absolutely true. But I absolutely believe that everybody is supposed to be able to provide for themselves. Two half people can't come together and make a whole person. That doesn't work. So usually when because I live that life, there's a price to pay. When you're looking for a sugar daddy, or you're looking for a dude that's going to pay all of the bills and do all this stuff, there's a price to pay for that. And a lot of times the price is he's going to be dictating how things goes. And because you don't have another place to go, because you don't have a backup plan, or because you're just too stupid to understand that you have really gotten yourself in a position that's not really favorable to you. It is how women can find themselves in the role of a victim. And so since we recognize that, I just think that a little bit more understanding should be able to be lent towards women that choose to be financially independent, because we know that there are dudes out here that will use financial manipulation as their personal brand of toxic masculinity crap. So
I just
To,
want to say this also. While I was researching this topic, I landed on a man that was speaking about this. And he was saying that the world should be grateful for toxic masculinity because that's how construction gets done. And there would be no engineers, and there would be not this and that. And I'm sitting there scratching my head saying to myself, well, I don't think to
are
be
we
a
back?
scientist or an
Look,
engineer, you
I
have
don't
to
know who
be.
that was that cut that off.
Let, let me finish. I don't know. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, like, I don't think you have to be toxic or masculine to be a scientist or engineer or a builder, any of those things. So people think that it has its place in the world. It does have its place in the world, in the boxing ring, so on and so forth. But there are men that subscribe to that, thinking that you have to be like cavemanish, club people over the head and drag them to your cave, and because I won, I'm the man, and it just did not. It's not a good fit for my mind, because you don't have to be any of those to accomplish things. There's a definitive need for scientists and engineers and geneticists and all those things that other people would say is not manly. But I kind of disagree with it. Just FYI.
all right, allow
I
me
guess
to
my
play
question
devil's
for the
advocate.
men,
Go ahead, Saria.
give me one question, Herb. I guess my question to the men is, do men display toxic masculinity to other men?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, there's no question about that.
How do you recognize it? Like, what happens? What happens when a dude is displaying it to another? Like, what does that look like?
Well,
Right.
go ahead,
Where's
David.
that line crossed at? Is
I
it
think we talked about that before. Like if it's a man, say for example, if he was hurt in a relationship, who has this echo? Um, and you go to your boys or something like that, and they use the language like, for real, man, fuck her or whatever, move on, find you something else, and they don't validate your feelings behind that. That's toxic.
Mhm.
When really you don't need to hear that from them at that particular time. But a lot of times they say it, but they could be going through the same thing, knowing damn well that wouldn't be their response, or that's not what they want to hear. But usually with guys, if it's one-on-one, you might be all right. You might have a friend that might have empathize with you and they're okay. But as soon as two or three come around and it's you, they all gonna gang up and say their little stuff, tell you to man up and all different types of things, and then you leave worse than you set out before you came in the situation.
so?
That's
Can I
just my
ask a
take.
I never
question
thought of it that
also?
way. Herb, what's your take on that?
I
Well,
wanted to ask
I'm
a
gonna
question.
actually go ahead, look here.
That
That
wasn't
wasn't
me.
the kid. That was me. That was me.
I'm
I
sorry.
wanted to.
I can't see who's speaking.
Y'all gotta bring
I
Brolic
wanted
T in.
to add to that question, that, and y'all could finish that question, to men. when is toxic too toxic? Like, I know you guys beat your chest and to do the silverback thing, but when do men just say, listen, you're just a total jerk, you're a butthole, get away from us, and you're not accepted? Is that something that happens? That's piggybacking what Shreya asked.
And that's
Well,
true. That's something that does need to be talked about too.
well, but see, okay, and this is where you have to separate how men behave and act in groups and how women do. Men don't excommunicate other men from a social group based on that, because we all realize we all have our extremes. I have my extremes, Dave does, Willie does, and we understand that in order for us to function, we have to allow for those extremes so long as they're not hurting anyone. And this is what David was alluding to. We won't necessarily know when damage is done until somebody says something. And sometimes, not all the time, sometimes, and this is what Kevin Samuels talks about, is that it can escalate into a physical altercation. That's when we know we've gone too far. Men will patch things up when we say, you know what, bruh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you felt like that. That's how we know. And this is why we always try to have spaces that are exclusively for men, because when women get into a certain space where there's just men, it's a foreign world to her. It's almost like somebody learning to speak another language and they've never opened a book, and they just walk in and all they hear is something and it sounds like static and chaotic. And it's just like, okay, what in the world is going on? A woman will view that as, that is just crazy. And to them, it absolutely is. It makes no sense. Whereas guys will just say, okay, you know what? That's them. That's how they relate to each other, and they will get back to a point of stasis. And we have to allow for that to happen, because you
No,
can't force it one way or the other, because if you force it one way or the other, it doesn't work out organically, and there's always that residue that never is resolved. And I want to get back to what Scorpio T was saying earlier about the about there's very few times where toxic masculinity is necessary. One of those times, and we just talked about this with the Cobra Kai and Mr. Miyagi and the Sensei, is war. In periods of life or death, when it's required that you take a life, you have you have to have a toxic mindset in order to survive. It's almost akin to being incarcerated. I've never been. I have family members, and acknowledgement to my nephew who just got out after doing some time. I got to get with you, man. So, I know my brother tried to reach out to me, and we're going to get together, man. It's good to see you out. There are times where you have to have a mindset that's geared for survival. A lot of women don't encounter that. And like I was just saying prior, when they see it, it makes no sense. So just bear that in mind.
I just want
Well,
to
let
say,
me just say
to
we
bring
do
clarity.
encounter periods where we feel like we have to survive, and that's usually when men are complaining that we're acting like you. When we feel like we're in a situation where we have to survive, and so we take that all or nothing kind of approach to it as well. And you hit on something that I agree with. The reason that that Sensei was so toxic, like we said, it was back during his war days. There is a different mentality that you have to have when you're in war than there is when you're here at home and you're dealing with just regular relationships. And for
Mhm.
me, it becomes toxic when you no longer can tell the difference. It's like you're going
Right.
around and you trying to swap flats with a hammer. Okay, you're not using the right tools to get the job done. But that can go in the reverse too. A lot of times, just like with all of the social unrest that we've been experiencing, a lot of the divide has come because you have protesters that are peaceful, you have some protesters that are not. And what some people don't understand is that you got some of those people out there that's in the mindset of soldiers. They all up in the
Mhm.
war has been declared, and they
Yep.
have that mindset, and so they're
Mhm.
out there. The rules of engagement for war are very different than it is for just everyday life. And so that's where I feel like the toxicity really shows itself, is when there's someone who cannot tell the difference, who does not have to, they don't have to do all of that. I wanted to bring Brolic in. We ain't even acknowledge you, boo. Hey there, girl. What's going on? That was it. I was like, you,
Hey, sorry.
what you got to say?
There's
Well,
unpacking
okay.
this conversation. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I'll hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, just want to make there is a lot to unpack in this conversation, and I want to bring it back to Cobra Kai because that whole Karate Kid series is like the epitome of like toxic masculinity at its best, worst, and all of it because it's all there for everyone. So in Cobra Kai, it talks about Sensei Kreese, who was, essentially the bad guy through the entire series. And it talks about how he became the way that he was. And it's interesting to note that before he was even in the army and he got backstabbed by, the superior, it showed bullied as a teenager by the local boys who were, the masculine ones in the football team and who treated him like he was less than a boy or less than a man because he came from a single parent household and he didn't have a dad there, which is something they show because one of the boys makes a comment about how his mom died or something, or she was sick and dying at the time. And that started a fight. Then there was another situation where this same boy who's constantly going for his throat is mistreating his girlfriend. And he asked her, "Are you okay?" And he was like, "Well, this is none of your business." And that resulted in another fight. So it's those situations where he's just trying to be a gentleman, but because he's exhibiting those gentleman qualities, it's taken as, "Oh no, you're not masculine enough," and it's
Weakness.
going to be a problem.
It's taken as a weakness. It was taken as a weakness. And that, by the time he had gotten
That,
to the point where, his hero was actually trying to take his ass up out of there, he,
exactly.
I feel like he just had everything that he could take, and now here's the one person that I thought, that was in my corner that's showing me everything that a man is supposed to be. And now this is what he's doing. And even though he didn't like having it done to him, he continued to do that to other people. And that's
Exactly.
another downfall of that, you can become what you hate. It's very, very easy, to become what you hate in this world. And I think that's a excellent example of it. And a lot of times I don't even like seeing the villain's backstory because a lot of times it makes that villain human, because sometimes when you see what a person has been through, you could be like, okay, well, I can understand why this turn happened. But then there's still a point for me where you have to be mature enough to know that this is like I said, you didn't like it when it happened to you.
Exactly.
So to go and do it to someone else, for me, that, that's a conscious choice that you're making about the type of person that you want to be, and so I couldn't allow the things I went through to affect because I have a son. I have a son that I had to make sure, just like you guys see me, and I'm spending a lot of my time with the girl children in my family. I have a son. He lives in California. He went off to pursue his dream. We allowed that to happen. We helped in that, you know what I'm saying? But when he calls me and he asks me for advice about women, like he asked me advice about everything, I have to be conscious that I'm not I have to be conscious that I'm not advocating for him to be so much of a gentleman that he loses himself in the relationship. I need him to know that his feelings is just as important as the young lady that he's dealing with, and that there has to be, because I'm trying my best not to do anything that even looks like, because we know there's some mamas that will take their son's side. Their son could be beating the shit out of their wife, and the movie The Burning Bed is one of those examples where you had this mother who knew that her son was
Yep.
abusive, was toxic,
Yeah,
was all of that stuff. And
that's right.
when
The
she
one
tried to
put
go to her for help, the advice was, well, just don't
Enablers.
make him mad. When she tried to get away, it was, she was kind of diming her out. So I'm
uh-huh.
always trying to make sure that I'm not that mom. Like my son knows there's a certain way that I do
Right.
expect you to treat women, but there's also a certain way that I expect you to demand to be treated by women
Treated.
because of the
Right.
fact that I'm raising you to be a gender.
Um,
Also, there's, yeah, that's a catch. That's a fine because there's a lot
that's
of
what
dudes out here that's smacking you up. you know.
that's what I had said to you about enablers. And a lot of the enablers are the mothers. It's sad to say. And there's something that I have noticed throughout the years that, and for myself, I was conscious about, I'm not going to enable my son. If he's wrong, he's wrong. And I'm going to tell him he's wrong. Because if he's treating a woman a certain way, I don't want to be treated like that, nor would I want any of my daughters to be treated like that. So if you're treating a woman like that, then shame on you. And I'm gonna let him know that. A lot of mothers are protecting their sons, sticking up for their sons, and trying to make it seem like they do no wrong. But if he acts like a duck and he quack like a duck, then he's a duck. He's doing wrong. You know what I mean? But no, they want to keep making excuses for them. And that's what's happening with, I believe, a lot of men that are still toxic because nobody's checking them on it. And even the girls and women that they are involved with, they're allowing them to, they know that they're seeing other women, or they know that they're being that type of guy, and they know they're setting these standards to women, saying, listen, this is who I am, I'm not accepting nothing else. I'm not doing this, I'm not going out to restaurants with you, I'm not going to be out in public with you, I'm not, no, don't put me on social media, just a lot of secrecy behind back door stuff that makes women, and we accept it. And I'm including myself because I was a victim of that at some point in time, plenty of times, to be honest. It's because we're thinking, oh, okay, it's all right. No, it's not all right. That's toxic because they're trying to uphold and manipulate what they're doing behind closed doors and keep this persona as if that they're not this type of guy. And everybody else that be around this guy, they think he's so sweet, he's so kind, or he would never do anything like that. No, he's playing everybody behind closed doors. And women, we allow that to continue because we're not addressing it.
Well, one
So I
thing
think
that
for the
my
guys,
cousin
that's the
used to
Well,
question.
always,
Guys, in your
she
opinion, do you believe that a guy that's displaying toxic masculinity, can he hide that? Like from a guy, I really want to, like, from a guy, is there certain things, like, can they switch faces like that? Can somebody who is truly displaying toxically masculine, are they able to just switch faces, or does it come to a point where they just kind of wearing that shit like a mask and you can see them coming from a mile away?
I'll answer that in this way.
That was
It
for the guys.
depends on who sees what. And this is one of the things we always talk about with recognition and red flags. And for one person, something isn't a red flag, and for someone else, it is, mainly due to the experiences that the one individual has had. Case in point, there's a lot of people that'll say what I say and what I do is toxic. And I always reference this. I'll say, who is it toxic to? Because I'll say some things and some people will have an adverse reaction to. And what I'm discovering in my life is if the things that I say cause an adverse reaction, it's generally based upon that person's experiences, not necessarily me, but just their experiences. So I automatically know that me and that person are never going to get along. And I'm okay with that. The problem is people are trying to force people that know they won't get along to get along and to coexist. And that causes a bigger problem. This is why I always say to people, look, if there's somebody that you don't align with ideologically, leave them alone. I tell my mentees this. I say the easiest thing to do in the world is to walk away from something. People will say, well, Herb, you have a fear of attachment. No, I don't have a fear of attachment. I'm not going to attach myself with something that I know is not beneficial to me physically, mentally, or spiritually. And when an individual arrives at that destination they have to understand that that's where they should be, and to be okay with that. And I think more women struggle with that because you're social creatures compared to men. See, I have no problem being just being in a situation where I'm by myself. I can go into a room full of people and they're all congregating. I can just sit there and just be alone and be okay with that. A lot of people are uncomfortable with that because they're uncomfortable in their skin. This is why I always tell people, get comfortable in your skin. Get comfortable with you being you. The hell with what the naysayers, because everybody's going to have a critic. Mother Teresa had critics. God had critics. Jesus had critics. And for most of us, when we hear those names, we associate them with good connotations. But no matter what, somebody somewhere has something negative to say about them.
Well, this is something I do want you to remember. When you're talking about toxic masculinity, it seeks to oppress or keep someone down. So unless you're trying to keep someone down, then that's a different scenario. With that being said, I'll give you an example of control over someone that's toxic. A lot of people will use the word insecure to someone because they want them to do what they want them to do. If a woman asks her whatever her situationship a question, and what are you insecure? I mean, what's wrong with that? You must be insecure. No, maybe she's not insecure. Maybe she's asking a valid question, but because you don't like the question, here comes some accusations. Those accusations are designed to keep you in a certain place. So to me, those types of things can be very, very toxic. And toxic masculinity and toxicity, period, is not necessarily confined within a relationship. There's a lot of toxic things that happen on people's jobs. We heard somebody on this panel say that their
That's
boss
why I
don't
asked the
know how to
question
talk
about
to people.
if they can display it to other men. That's why I was asking, because I wanted to know
And,
how they handled it when they encounter it, like on your job or just
and
wherever.
that's what I was getting at. A lot of toxic things take place in the workplace. And I want, so the point that I was making with that is toxic is not always defined within a relationship. You see it in the workplace. They have whole seminars about this type of thing. So when you guys, you men, and since Willie was quiet, I was going to ask him directly, but since he's gone now, I'll just ask Herb and Dave, what, how do you guys recognize that at work, and how do you deal with it?
Well, at work, for me, it's the ability to not show them your hand. So I always got them guessing. So they don't know what I'm thinking because I don't show them my hand. So therefore, when you don't show them your hand, only thing you can say is, "Man, David, real quiet," or whatever the case is. Unless someone who says he's not that quiet, David has a lot to say. Trust me, and what he says is on point. So they're kind of leery, or they don't know what to say to you. So you got them on the defensive. That's how I always been since I've been working, and I never really had too many issues on the job directly because I never showed them my hand. Everything is simple. I have a couple throughout the years. I have a couple people that get close to, and they may know a little more, but I built in trust in them that they know I ain't gonna repeat nothing David say. He don't say much anyway there, but I'm not gonna repeat it, so I'm good. It's the ones when you just go running your mouth and you're the social butterfly and all that stuff.
Right.
That's where the problems come into. I never show my hand
So,
at work.
so if your boss came in yelling at you, and maybe you didn't do whatever he said to do. Maybe he didn't do that. You didn't do that. So if he came in like yelling and was rather hostile, what would you label that as, and what would you do with it?
What would I do at them? I probably would look at them like they crazy and say, and depending on the relationship I have with them, I probably would say, really, like who you talking like who you talking to? Like
Yeah, my
seriously,
first
like
thing is who you talking to.
yeah, yeah. So that never happened because I'm calm and cool. So I don't recall. It was some incidents that I had to step to a boss when I worked at Brandon Stratton
Yeah,
College, and they were
yeah,
like,
yep.
I'm not talking about you, big guy. I'm not talking about you, big guy. I would never think that of you because they were lumping in other people with me, and I'm like, yo, all I do is come here. I'm professional. I do what I got to do. Don't include me in that. Oh no, I'm not talking. I apologize and all of that. So no, I don't come yelling at me. I don't know.
And
That
I'll
just
and
I've
I'll
never
seen,
follow
I've seen,
happened.
I've seen it. So go ahead, Herb.
and I'll follow up what Dave said, and this is something that I alluded to earlier. People know that when you're dealing with men, that there's always, and I stress always, a low-key threat of a physical altercation. And this is what David's alluding to, not saying that he would have, but the seed is always in the back of an individual's head. So you know who you can address in certain ways, and you know who you won't address in certain ways.
KYP.
And I mean that with all sincerity, because I've had a couple situations, not at my current place of employment, but at another place where and I won't mention that because I'm quasi still employed on paper. I just haven't been there since the pandemic. But I was working midnights, me and another officer, and the supervisor had called a meeting. So we're sitting there, and the guy strolls in about 15, 20 minutes late. And the first thing he does is gets on his cell phone. Now, I'm generally a mild mannered person. I don't say a whole lot at work. I don't need to. I come in, I'm like Dave, I do my job and I'm gone. So he's sitting there while the supervisor's talking, and he's looking down at his phone. And I immediately came off the top rope, dropped the elbow suplex. And I'm like, dude, we having this meeting because of you. And I laid into him. I laid into him to the point where he thought I was going to beat his ass that night, and he didn't say anything to me to the rest of the night. And he conveyed that to my supervisor or to the management that the next shift, which was early in the morning. Some people would look at that as being toxic, and I wouldn't fight you on it. But the problem comes in that sometimes you can only reach an individual by being that way. Sometimes it's like the old adage, sometimes you have to speak to people at the level they're at. This is one of the things that a lot of, that's just a benefit to being a man, and being a man that is about his business, that conveys by the way you speak, the way you conduct yourself, and the way you do things, that you're not about that nonsense. You're about business, and if business dictates something, you're willing to do it. I've never been yelled at by a supervisor, by a manager. My whole demeanor dictates that. I come in, I'm serious. I rarely smile, but I'm cordial. And people will say, well, how can you be cordial if you don't smile? Because my conversation tells you that. I sit back and have a conversation with a complete stranger and say, he's a nice guy, but he doesn't smile. But yes, listen to his conversation, his diction, the way he talks to you. So that's something that women just, unfortunately, you ladies, you don't have that because you're not willing to put them dupes up and fight for it. And I know that sounds
What
sexist. I
women are
know
you
that sounds
talking about?
misogynistic.
No, 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 no. It
That's a
sounds
misconception.
wrong
Don't believe it.
because
That
let
was
me tell
toxic
you something.
masculinity right
Hold
You
in his
on,
put
hold
up a
on,
finest.
video
hold,
one
hold,
time
hold,
of a
hold
dude. You
on.
put up a video one time of a female that went the whole complete entire fuck off in a restaurant. Women are always on ready, set,
Always
go when it
just as
comes
willing.
to being
Hold on.
to a confrontation. So
We're specifically
that's
talking
not a
about.
misconception for us. That's a misconception for you all that
No,
don't
no.
have that.
We're speaking specifically in the corporate workplace.
I think we understand
Okay.
exactly what you're saying. It doesn't matter. It's the workplace, period.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay.
and the thing is that
Women are
just
on
to
ready,
share,
set, go.
okay, just as we are here, we're just as ready. I remember I was as a supervisor, I had a woman put a pencil in my face because she was getting reprimanded. I could have took that pencil and shoved it right in her eye, but I didn't. I kept my cool. But the fact that she was ready, back in the day, I would have took her out. I'm not saying that we don't be ready. We're just as ready. And I believe it's my daughter sharing me in her job. The girl went on the whole back to the boardroom. The boss didn't do her right. She tore up everything. Threw a chair at a customer. It's just as ready to go.
Well, I'll give you an example.
Yeah, no, women say
What's with that? Echo, the assumption that women don't do that
that might be
is
me. I'm gonna
a
mute out for a second. I had to
misconception.
come outside.
Okay, and I'm gonna tell you. Okay, so I work for this man. I think he's since passed on, but his family came from old money, like literally they owned slaves and everything. So his idea was nobody can you can replace whoever you want to in life. Everybody is replaceable. So I got hired as the office manager there. When I got there, he was used to scream. As a matter of fact, he was screaming at a few people, and one of the young ladies, she was a very young lady, like new to the workforce. He kind of made her cry. And I'm like, this is me coming in to find out about your business and what's for crying to run your business. So he's screaming and hollering, and I'm just kind of looking around because I'm trying to figure out, is this a normal thing? And long story short, he would scream and holler at everybody, but he would not scream and holler at me. He tried one time, and I got him together. Understand this. Just like you think everybody is replaceable, I think a job is replaceable. Don't you ever. And I meant that from my soul. And I would have been ready because, listen, I'd have been ready to fight if necessary. Just put it like that. So and this is what I think catches a lot of people off guard because they don't expect certain stuff from people. And you shouldn't expect violence all the time. That in and of itself is toxic. But that's not something that you should expect all the time to walk around with the thought that, oh, this person's gonna harm me. I'm just saying that there is toxicity and is masculine toxicity in the workplace. I've seen it play out. The vice president was whose phone is that? Is that mine?
It is yours.
No. Is it for real?
I don't know who it is.
Because I be hearing all the extra stuff, so then I'm like trying to listen to what the extra stuff is. Okay, so it definitely have and the ability to diffuse a situation. This is some of the problems with officers. They had that toxic thing going on, male and female, but they had that toxic thing going on that makes them think that just by virtue of this uniform, I deserve something from you, without understanding that you're giving out toxicity. And I'm done. I can't take the echo.
All right, so
go ahead, David.
So you got Willie, who hasn't said nothing in a while. I don't know if he's ready to speak, and you had Gwendolyn, who just joined. I would like them to get the opportunity to speak.
Go ahead, Willie. We know you got something.
Well, for me,
he was talking to you.
I really don't. And it's funny. I'm kind of listening to, because for me, a lot of what's being said, I really don't have anything to say. But especially when they were talking about like the job.
Really, Willie?
We don't even know what that means, Willie. I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad.
Willie speaks. Ain't got nothing to say. I'm just
Right.
messing with you.
And exactly. I'm actually at a loss for words. But for me, I look at toxic masculinity. I've thought about, I never knew that term toxic masculinity until, to be honest with you, the last, 2, 3, 4 months is when I started to hear that term. Maybe I just wasn't in the right places or whatever the case may be. But to understand people and listening to what you guys are saying about it, we as men, we go through that, and we don't, like I said, I've never had a label for it. So we have people that we might be around that have that personality, and we just say, oh, that's just how they are.
Right.
But it doesn't really take an effect on us because that's, like I said, we get used to it. And as men, we don't take offense by it. But if there's a woman in the room, a lot of times you'll hear those same guys that's with that person say, yo, man, calm down with that. Because they know the woman is going to take it differently or feel offended by what that person is saying. So for me, like I said, I'm used to, and as a matter of fact, I did a presentation this morning about surround yourself with better. And it kind of talks about that, where you get people with different personalities around you. And sometimes you have to be careful because of those influences that those personalities will have on you. You know, you have some people that support you, some people encourage you. And then at the same time, you have people that are against you. And based on how they feel towards you, they're going to act a certain way to try to put you either down or try to take something away from you to make you feel belittled in a situation. So, I mean, for me, like I said, growing up, I've been through a lot of what was being said here, but I never had a title for it. It's just, well, that's just how that person was, and I stayed away from that person, you know. And then you get a group of guys and you're together, and everybody's got their personality, but there's always that one that may have that what you call toxic personality, and everybody says, well, that's just how he is. And they let him slide, they let him say what he got to say, and then later on when he leaves, I got something to say about him because of all the nonsense that may have come out of it. But we still don't, you know, try to hold him to the fire because in our minds, that's just how he is.
And
So,
that's
I
part
mean,
of the
like I said, I'm just
problem is that
listening
it's
to it.
normalized.
Huh?
That's part of the problem
hear
that
you.
is normalized.
There's nothing to
It
do with being
became
normalized. It's just a personality. You can't change a person. And for guys, we don't try to change a person's personality. We don't try to change a person's personality. But if they're doing something, like I said, when we're together, that person, oh, that's just how he is. But if there's women around and they start to act out that same personality, you might say, yo, calm down with that, or chill out with that, because we know how he is, but we don't do that when we're in certain settings. So, like I said, I hear what you are saying, but I don't know how to address it because to me, it's just a norm. It's just a person's personality. You know, like like people know me.
Kind of what
I
you just
have
said
a
is
warped
that it's
sense of
being
humor.
normalized,
And if you
and
read
so
my
that's
Facebook
kind of
pages,
where the problem comes in at. I'm sorry.
well, it's not normal. It's not.
Hold on,
a
Willie.
norm. It's a personality.
When she says normalize, it sends out the incorrect connotation. When we hear normalize, we hear acceptable, and it's not. That's what Willie's saying. Willie's saying among the group of men, we tolerate it. But when we are among a group of mixed company, we seek to check that. We say, dude, no, this is not the time, nor the place, and it's certainly not the crowd.
So now let me use that same parallel. Let me use that same parallel with children. If we allow it, if we don't check that, if we say, well, hey, that's part of their personality, but sometimes that, to me, that can also be construed as sweeping it up under the carpet. That's how he is when he's around us, because there's a certain point with a child. You can't just correct a child when you're out in public and let them get away with whatever they're going to do at home. Eventually, what they do at home and what's been normalized and what's been accepted at home is going to be displayed out in public. And at a certain point, there is no checking that you can do when they're out in public when they display something.
Okay, but you're taking apples and oranges because, like I said, listen, because what you're talking about is a child who you can correct. A grown man in the same situation.
What I'm talking about is
that's not what
I'm talking about.
Toxic masculinity.
What I'm talking about is the acceptance of behavior. Okay, so that's fine. We'll do it, grown women. So if I have a grown woman, if we have a group of friends and we're all hanging out, and they're acting a certain way amongst us, if we don't say anything because we just say, oh, that's just how they are, but then when we get in mixed company because we don't want people to know, for whatever reason that we decide to check them, then for me, and this is just my opinion, it's too late to try to check them then when we get in front of company. If I couldn't say nothing to them, face to face, if I found it offensive. If you don't find it offensive, then that would be the reason that you don't say anything. And when you say that if a woman is there, then you'll try to check that behavior then. So how is that not accepting
Okay.
the behavior?
But again, you're taking what you're applying to a man and trying to apply it to a woman. See, this is the
Well, we're just talking
discussions
about
I have every day.
accountability. We're just talking about accountability. That's it.
Let me finish. This is the discussion that I have on my page all the time. Is men look at things and they react to things differently from women. So you can't apply a man's situation and say, well, if me and my girlfriend, because it has nothing to do with you and your girlfriends. You can't apply how men relate to men and say, well, we don't do it that way. That's right, because you're women. Men do things differently. That's why we're men, and that's why you're women. So you can say this is not
everybody.
This is toxic, or this is what we do with our girlfriends, or whatever the case may be. But the thing is, men don't see it that way. Men don't put men in other men in check.
That's a good statement. I don't even say it's a problem.
That's where you have the confrontations. That's where the confrontations and the fights start, when a man is trying to exude his power over another man. And that's where the issue begins, where you start well, this man, well, who are you to tell me what I should say and what I'm not going to say? And then it becomes a battle of pumping chest. Whose chest going to be the biggest? So now nothing gets accomplished because nobody's going to back down, because you have two men trying to show that they have masculinity. Women aren't going to do that. Like I said, that's why you can't apply that men do and apply to women.
Let me give it.
Because there's really no way to argue this. There's no way to argue this, because you're
asking.
It's
a discussion.
You're making a rational discussion out to irrational people, and it's not going to work.
Let me give an example.
Wait a minute.
Let me give an example.
See, and now this is where we get to a different thing.
If I ask a question, because what you just described are extreme situations. Those are the more extreme that end in physical violence.
How is that extreme?
Being said, because every encounter does not end in physical violence. What he just described is an extreme situation in which people
it's not extreme. It's not extreme.
Wait a minute.
First of all, I said, can I give an example?
Reality TV? Do we not watch Love and Hip Hop?
I haven't cut not one person off when they were talking. Don't do me like that. I've sat here quiet and I've listened to people talk. Don't cut me off. We're not doing that tonight. So we having a simple conversation. And I am allowed to finish my thought just like the rest of the people did. Like I said, those are extreme situations in which they have to become a fist fight. There are toxic situations that don't lead to physical violence. So to say that, listen, I know that men think, I ain't let nobody check me, but there are just as many females that have the same thought. That's a toxic thought that affects everybody. The simple fact that remember, the whole process of toxic masculinity seeks to oppress or put someone down or bully them or anything along that lines. It requires an action. You can have a toxic exchange without physical violence. So that's an extreme situation.
What I wanted to do was give an example of what Willie was saying. And it ain't that long-winded, because I'm never long-winded. I keep it to the specific point.
Let's start talking then.
Hold up, cowgirl. Hold up. Yeah, hold up. Yeah, pump your brakes. Fall back.
Hey. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander.
Okay.
You got me.
Anyways,
I got you.
Yeah, well, I'm not tit for tat. So any old ways, I was dating this young lady, and she wanted to throw a little get together. And it was everybody know me. If you know me, I like boxing. So it was a big, I think back in them days, it was, and this is how long ago it was. It was Evander Holyfield and maybe Riddick Bowe or something. So I told her, I said, okay, I'm gonna invite a few of my boys over. And she had a few of her girlfriends there. She's like, oh, I'm gonna invite some of my guy friends over. I told her, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Oh no, they'll be all right. No, you don't know how me and my boys roll. We talk junk during the boxing match. We start having personal challenges toward each other, just conversation. I'll knock you out in the third round or whatever. We laugh it off. She was adamant. Oh no, they'll be fine. So she ended up inviting them guys, and we doing us, being us, because typically if we around a group of women, we just cracking jokes and they laughing. But these other guys wanted to be standoffish. Well, I tell you what, ain't none of y'all gonna knock me out in the third or fourth round or whatever. What the hell talking to you like that? We were talking amongst each other. And we almost tore that damn house apart because the simple fact you can't mix certain people. Like Willie was saying, like sometimes when it's a crowd, and I think Herb mentioned that, you act different. So I guess they were jockeying for position, trying to show off in front of them women. But that was never our thing. One of my boys, he'd be the master of that, saying he'd knock all of us out in 2-3 rounds, then go out and have a drink. And we just crack up and laugh at him. But one of them guys, they didn't take it that way. So but I was trying to tell her. Yeah, they took it serious. And it was all a bunch of immature guys.
But let me ask you.
To me, go ahead, Lakia.
No, I just want to clarify what Willie's trying to say. So, Willie, you're saying that women don't get like that. They don't get combative towards other women the same way men do towards each other. Okay, I just want to clarify.
They don't get combative the same way as men. They don't. They don't get combative. You said that right. They don't.
Oh, okay. So
right, now I'm saying you're right. They don't get combative the same way as men. I
have to tell you that I'm gonna share with you that you're totally wrong. You're totally wrong, and I'm gonna give you my example of why you're wrong. Okay, I'm gonna speak from my own examples. I grew up in the club. We clubbed it every weekend without fail, and I bet you half the time we got kicked out the club because we was fighting. And anytime any chick checked us, we checked them, or we checked them. They checked. We are the same way. And if that wasn't the case, why do you feel that we're so combative on here? We're just as combative on here as we are with you guys and with each other at times. Women are. It's just that you don't see, guys may not see it that way, but you guys, if y'all really pay attention, if you watch, but there's Housewives of Atlanta, Housewives of San Potomac, Housewives of whatever and all, they go at it at all times, and that's not just for show. That's how women are. We're catty at times.
All women.
And this the thing is, and that's what I'm saying to you. We're just as catty, or just as well. Tell somebody to start a show. What's his name? What's his name? The little guy.
Supposed to be, because the examples that she gave are those examples. They have shows that have men and women, and those men are just as messy as the women are. Now, I don't watch
Love and Hip Hop
Housewives of anything, because a whole bunch of the time none of the people is even wives. They're not even
married to medicine. But them women married to medicine go in all the time.
When there are men on these reality shows, the men are just as ridiculous as the women.
So you're incorrect.
They can be.
The way that they do things, they're just as ridiculous.
I'll be incorrect. It don't matter.
And so
I don't know. Maybe you didn't grow up in our neighborhood. You didn't grow up in our neighborhoods, but if you grew up in the hood, sweetie, you would have saw that go down. And people don't know. They don't mess with 6th Street in Niagara Falls. Sorry.
So there are things that are in place, right? There are things that there are the rules and different little things that are written, and someone once said an unwritten rule. So those rules that supposedly apply to women were born of men. So there's a certain mentality behind that when you say that women don't do this, because remember that the lawmakers, the lawmakers in this world, for the most part, at least in this country, are generally white men, and white men have written laws into place to keep other people
Let
that
me-
seek to keep them down, so on and so forth. So there's a whole thing behind that. So you can't just say women don't do this in the way that men do, or men don't do this in the way that women do. You have to remember that there are already set forth parameters in which things are supposed to take place, and a lot of time they do take place in that manner. So just remember that.
There's
Yeah, I gotta call that out.
I
Speak.
mean, I've been sitting here and I've been listening to a lot of things. A lot of thoughts have come up to my head. So let me address a couple of them. So, as far as in the workplace, has there ever been a situation? Okay, I remember going for a job interview, right? To be a teacher, job interview. And anybody who knows me in real life knows that I'm very mild mannered. I'm very quiet. I'm outspoken when I need to be. Other than that, I people watch. That's just me. I go according to whatever the room is telling me I need. However the room feels, that's how I react to the situation. So I remember sitting across from these three women, and automatically, just the way that they were postured in front of me, told me that there was a clique mentality at this place of in employment. And the thought that I had is, do I really want to work in a place like this? But I said, you know what? This is me just looking at them. I don't want to be presumptuous and think, and make a judgment based on what I see. So the question was asked of me, do I do I ever get rowdy, or like, how do I manage kids, because you're just so mild mannered, like, I just don't think that you would fit. And I said, I do what I have to do when I have to do it. So in other words, when a child is doing something they're not supposed to do, I address that when it needs to be addressed. I don't think that this is the moment for me to be all out there. You ain't that. I'm not disciplining anybody at this moment. I'm just having a casual conversation with y'all about my teaching skills and what it is that I bring to the table. Needless to say, I didn't take that job because that told me in that
Well, you
moment
knew that
that wasn't
environment was going to be
that wasn't the
horrible.
place for me, and that was
Toxic.
looking at them sitting across from the table from me. I said, that
Mhm.
wasn't the place for me. There's another situation where I was working at a school, and there was this teacher. She always had to be the loudest person in the room. Always had to be seen. Always had to be heard. And like I said, I'm mild mannered. I'm not, hi, how you doing? And I keep going. Unless I actually have to speak to you, I typically don't. And me and her didn't run in the same circles. I'm a sped teacher. We didn't work in the same grade level. I see her, hey, how are you? And that was the extent of our interactions. So one day she came into the copy room and I was in there. And I was on my way out of the copy room. And she goes, do you have a problem with me? Which course threw me off guard, because I'm like, I barely interact with you. What problem could I possibly have with you? I don't even know you
Right.
like that. And I goes, no. And of course, I'm trying not to be a smartass in that moment, because in that moment when she asked me that dumbass question, I really wanted to ask her a dumbass question. But instead, I was like, you know what? I want to hear this out, because I just want to know where her head is at, because I was amused at that moment. And she goes, you always walking around with your nose up, talking about Jersey this and Jersey that. And let me tell you something, I'm from Alabama, and that shit don't mean nothing down here. And I bust out laughing. I said, well, first of all, let me run it. We don't work in the same grade level. We have very little interactions. I said, so the most you'll ever get out of me is hi, good morning, and good afternoon. I said, but if you feel like I've done something wrong to you and you need to rectify that, I leave out of this building the same way every day at the same time every day. Meet me in the parking lot. We can solve all that.
Mm, mm.
And I
Meet
show
me
you
in the parking lot of the
Serve
school.
notice.
turn
Serve
Yeah.
notice.
around, walk, and that was that. So to say that women don't have conversations, we most certainly do. Do we go through
Mhm.
knockdown, drag out fights all the time? No, because
ooh,
we know
You don't
that
have
you
to
have
do them.
In that moment, let me put you on notice. If that's how you really feeling, you know how to find me. I'm not a hard person to find. Let's take it there. And then another thing that came to my mind was when the kid was talking about a mother's role in toxic masculinity and how a lot of mothers, when she was talking, the first couple that came to my mind was Ike and Tina Turner. And I say that because I remember in the movie how Tina's mother knew what he was doing to her child, but because he was the one who took care of everybody, she talked her daughter into staying. She even went as far as to tell him that she took the kids and got on a bus and she was running to come to her house so that he went and tracked her down and dragged her back home. You know what I mean? So this is something that came to my mind. I think of the scene in the movie where he raped her in the studio. Because of course, one of our topics tonight is about how your body belongs to your partner, but not yourself. And it's like, why is that even a topic? In what world is that even acceptable? Like there are laws against that. In case you guys didn't.
In this one,
let me fool you to something. It's been on a book since.
Well, there's examples of that we could get into. So we're gonna go deeper into that.
It's
but we
still
have
law in
someone.
some states, right, Dave?
Of course.
It's still law in some states that that's what it is. We did have somebody new. Who introductions, please?
The Book of Ronan. So he's new here. So we got to give him a chance to speak. How you doing,
can't
brother?
hear you, brother. Sorry, she's still talking, brother. She's still trying to talk. We can't hear her.
Oh, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh,
Yes,
we
we
hear
can
you
hear you
now.
now.
How you doing?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. No, just it's Nick, but no, just chiming in and supporting the show. Just waiting to see what's going on as far as before I chime in officially.
Go ahead, brother. Chime in.
We've been discussing the different types of toxic masculinity and how it shows itself.
What was that again?
We were talking about toxic masculinity and how it shows itself in the different ways, and does it exist?
What we deem as toxic masculinity is actually things as far as men having codes of conduct, men of having a sense of that seems to be deemed toxic in many circles. What should be deemed toxic is rated in areas as far as being deemed as men if they actually get out society and tough. Cutting out.
Me too.
Is there a lag with anybody else?
Yeah, you're lagging.
Yeah, he's cutting out. He's cutting out.
I'll fix that. Give me a second.
So it's a question that Greg Howard said, is there toxic femininity? Yeah.
Hell yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. Absolutely is.
Hell yeah.
It absolutely
Excuse my language. Fuck yeah, it is.
Here's the thing. I mean, if there is toxic masculinity, then there has to be toxic femininity. Everything has an equal and an opposite. And so if you have toxic masculinity,
that's our
you
new
absolutely
visitor.
have
Our
toxic
visitor
femininity, just like you have regular masculinity and regular femininity. So yes, you do.
So I have some of the. Go ahead.
No, Anita, go ahead. You haven't really said too much.
Go on, Anita.
So, like according to toxic masculinity, some of the traits that are overemphasized or not, or men may fall short of, say that men aren't a real man. So some of these traits are harmful and to everybody, not just men, not women, not just men, but it's society in general. And so some of these are aggression, sexual aggression or control, showing no emotion, showing no vulnerability, hyper competitiveness, isolation, low empathy, entitlement, chauvinistic, and sexism. So that being said, it's a problem that when our society doesn't recognize and that it is becoming normalized amongst our society, and that can also lead to a lot of times dominance in a relationship and domestic violence. So I think that's
Absolutely.
all.
The toxicity on any part, whether it's a female or a male, the the extreme culmination of that is gonna be physical abuse. That's
Hmm.
the extreme of, to me, when we're talking about a toxicity in anybody, because we know that females abuse just like males can abuse. So when we're talking about toxicity in any direction, the extreme of that to me is the physical altercations, and I believe that's what Scorpio T was talking about when she was saying that we were talking about an extreme. But what you just said when you were talking about not being able to show empathy, that hit on a topic that Dave had listed when we're talking about the no reciprocation in relationships. Like, women are able to listen to, some men's problems and all of that stuff, and be that ear and all of that, and show compassion and show empathy. But a sign of toxic masculinity is when that man is withholding that, or not displaying that back, not reciprocating that back, not being, like I said, not reciprocating, and not
Right.
and using. And to me, it's not just the holding back of it, because a lot of times, I don't want to get it confused. A lot of times, just because somebody doesn't open up to you, that doesn't mean that they're being toxic.
Correct.
It could be that they don't fucking trust you enough to open up to you, that you haven't created a situation, you haven't created an atmosphere where they feel safe to open up to you. So that's why I said at the open of the show that a lot of times we can throw these terms around very, very generally and blatantly, and now it's become simply because we don't like what you said, or we don't like what you
Hmm.
did. Now you're toxic. To me, that's a form of toxic femininity, when we are so offended about every single thing that now the only explanation has to be is that a person is being toxic. For me, when I don't open up to somebody 9, 10 times out of 10, because I don't fucking know you. I don't fucking, I don't know what I don't know you. You haven't earned that from me. Sometimes we have to understand as women that just as we want men to earn from us, we have to earn from them as well. So if you haven't earned that, if you haven't displayed that you're somebody that's going to be able to, you know, take his emotions not as a weakness, not as him not being masculine enough, and respect that, then you're going to get a guy that is going to withhold that. Now, of course, in this instance, when it goes into being toxic, it's somebody that's not having an issue. You got a woman, most of the time, you have a woman that's just pretty much begging for this guy to give her any type of attention, and he's withholding that because he's using it as a control mechanism. So to me, those are the different extremes of, the different reasons that it could be that somebody is withholding compassion or empathy or something from you. It may not necessarily be that they're being toxic, that you haven't earned it. So, what's everybody's take on that? Because I just want to be very careful with the terms that we throw out there and the interpretations that we give.
Well, before we go to everybody
So
take,
let me give you
we got two new guys on here. Two new guys. So
All
they
right.
got to speak.
Okay,
We
fellas.
want to go back to the book of Ronan. Then we want to bring Chris in.
Well, as far as the definition of toxicity, when you start using that word like um,
Wait a minute.
treating
Somebody
somebody,
has to mute their
thank
their
you.
Facebook. Somebody mute their Facebook. Who is the guy?
Yeah, somebody got multiple devices
Can you
going on.
mute him, David? Can you mute him for now?
Not me.
No, it's the other guy.
It's the Dorito bag.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with what the lady said. It's like when you start using the word toxic as dogma to basically ostracize and start eliminate certain people's comments and concerns or even thoughts, to keep them irrelevant. I think with toxic is extreme, but again, when we use that word toxic, in most cases, we're hypocritical about it.
Mhm.
While you have men who do have some toxic displays, which we do acknowledge, a lot of toxic femininity is supported, where you have a lot of money being made with these talk shows or even reality television shows where they're showing women in their most feral displays, where they're out in public, not housebroken, fighting barefoot in the street and doing all kind of nonsense.
Disgusting. Disgusting.
I mean, all kind of disgusting acts that are unfeminine, or you create an environment that's where confidentiality is a foreign language, where psychological, emotional, spiritual, and actual physical violence is a norm. Where you start spreading propaganda about each other, especially in certain areas like Lipstick Alley or whatever. That's a sense of toxicity. If we're going to talk about it, we need to address it as adults and not just use it as something to champion in one hand and other to crucify other people for self-serving means. That's my thought.
Appreciate it.
So can I say something? Because we were talking about those extremes a little bit earlier, and I do agree toxicity goes across the board. It's not just a male or female thing. But I want to give you a example of something that wouldn't be considered extreme. So can you guys hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember when my son was dating this young lady, and he was trying to find out what was wrong with her at that moment. And she okay, so okay, that's what's wrong. My phone was ringing. Okay, so she didn't want to talk to him at that moment for whatever reason. Can y'all hear me? Yes.
Yes.
No?
Yes.
Okay. So long story short, he said to her, well, if you don't want to tell me now, I don't want to hear about it later. And I said, wait a minute, hold up, homie. You got life all messed up right now. You don't get the right to dictate when somebody wants to talk about whatever's affecting their life. Who do you think you're talking to? You got a lot of nerve. So I had to get them together because right is right and wrong is wrong. You don't get to make that determination. To me, that was extremely toxic because at that point, I felt as if that was even a control mechanism and it wasn't happening to me. I just happened to be there when he said it to her and I didn't like it because I feel like you don't have that determination. Those are small toxic things that happen. And I felt like, especially with you, that just was not cool. It was not cool. It's something that happens to women a lot from men. And I'm sure there are some women who feel that way, but it happens a lot from man to woman. If you don't want to talk to me right now, then I'm not trying to hear you later. That's toxic. That's one of those small examples and not extreme cases of something that is occurring to oppress, put somebody else down, control a situation, so on and so forth. Because you can't tell me that somebody will go to work and say some things like that because it might cost them their job. So if you can't do it at work, you should not be doing it at home either. That's it.
But this is to
So
piggyback
for
off
me,
that. I do
and this
agree
is
with
just for
her when
me,
you're saying that.
it's not necessarily toxic.
But yeah,
I'm
I
sorry, go
agree
ahead,
with that
Lakia.
because you can even use like the silent treatment or shutting down as manipulation. And that's toxic because, it never feels good to be shut out. And I don't think anybody would like that. And to me, that comes across somewhat toxic because, I am a communicator. As y'all see, I'm an open book. I don't have. Yeah, I should probably hide a little bit more of my things, but you know what? So far, I'm just I I like to be transparent because I feel like so much secrecy has gone on in life. I feel that there is so much manipulation and so much treachery that is going on where people are being deceptive. And that's why I choose to be open so that it can help somebody else realize, or know that they're not the only ones going through it or have gone through it and not ashamed of what you go through because it makes you a better person. It doesn't mean you're stuck at where you were. It means, okay, now I had to grow from this situation. So I like to be transparent.
Now, is Lakia still talking? Are you still talking? Maybe you froze up.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to interrupt you if you were still talking. You froze up a bit.
Can you hear me? Is it still? I'm breaking up now too.
Yeah.
Is it better? I'm just saying, like being just piggybacking off what she said, being quiet can be a manipulation. It can be toxic. We need to be able to learn how to. And no, we can't always just be emotional and be like, well, I want to talk now. Women need to be, or men need to be a little bit more understanding when someone needs a moment to digress and just get their thoughts together. But I think when you are working with taking into consideration of each person that's in the situation, that you should, okay, give me a minute, let me talk, give me a minute and we can talk about it. Not weeks later or days later, but within reason, that you don't make a person feel like they're just kicked to the curb. That to me seems a little toxic.
I agree.
So for me, I don't know. I think that it's all situational, as every single thing that we talked about is, because again, that can go into simply because I don't like it, I'm calling it toxic. You're an open communicator, and if you're with somebody that's not an open communicator, now all of a sudden, because they're not an open communicator, they're toxic because you are. That's what I mean when I say that the lines can get blurred and it can become, we're labeling things as toxic simply because we don't like them. I don't know the situation that Scorpio was talking about, but somebody saying, okay, if you don't want to talk about it now, I'm not going to want to talk about it later. I don't know if I personally would label that as toxic. I may label it as rude. Again, not knowing the situation, because I don't know if she has a habit of fucking, I'm asking you what's wrong and you don't want to say nothing. And then when I'm in the middle of a game or some shit, then that's when you pick the time to want to come and tell me about your problem. I don't. So if you don't know that, I can't just say
she was absolutely a good communicator.
And this is why I'm saying I don't know the situation.
So
this is why I say I don't know the situation. But it can be situational that you can't. Because for me, when I don't want to talk about something, and I could be toxic.
I wanted to put that into context. This young lady was absolutely a good communicator, and usually you wouldn't have to prompt her for anything. And my son, and mind you, at this time, they probably were teenagers, 17, 18, 19. He wanted to know so bad what was happening, and she wasn't speaking about what was going on with her. So when he made that statement, I felt like that was a control mechanism. Long story short, she had a very real situation to process it mentally and emotionally. So at that point, she was unable about it. When she was able to, she did. So I want y'all to understand that this young lady was very communicative. So, and that's the thing that really kind of bugged me when I saw that.
Is Ronan frozen or is it? Are you frozen? Oh,
no, he frozen. He's not frozen. He got his hand up.
Your hand up.
That's a good guy putting his hand up.
What's that, Ronan?
Go ahead, brother.
No, I didn't want to be rude, but when she mentioned that situation, it's always best to be an active listener, because again, there's people who use overt and covert ways of manipulation. And when we're talking about toxic, we're talking about violent persons of respect, space, and boundary, intentionally, to garner a reaction or a dominance. So,
new guy, you have to turn your thing down in the background so we can hear this young man.
Yeah, nah, I got y'all on the TV. You turn that shit down.
So you got mute the TV.
Let me get my goddamn. Hold on, my bad, my bad. Hold on, let me.
And
I'm
Scorpio,
I
absolutely understand that scenario. when you have a scenario like that where somebody is using it. But I did want to bring to light again, like I said, when we don't have that backstory, because we don't know what's going on in that situation, everything, we just can't label everything, toxic just because I don't like it. I might not like how somebody said something to me, but that doesn't mean that they're a toxic individual. It just means that I
I
don't like
agree.
how the fuck they said, and I got a choice on how to deal with that. What's up, Ronan? I'm interested to hear what you have to say, because he just holds his hand up. He do. I got
I know,
you.
but can I say something real quick? I just want to compliment you, Soraya. I want to
Wait one
compliment
second,
you
Nakia.
real quick. I just want to compliment you on that, Soraya, because you're saying some really good stuff. And I want to let you know that as a woman, I appreciate what you're sharing, because I have, I take it offensively, when a man does not speak to me within reasonable time. And, and just to share with you, and it's enlightening me. So I just want to let you know I appreciate your comment.
Oh, that's so sweet. That is so sweet. Love is love. Let's get Brother Chris in here.
Ronan, what were you saying? Hello, darling.
So, hey, a lot of brothers ain't going. A lot of brothers ain't gonna agree with what with where I'm going, but we're talking about toxic masculinity, and for some reason we turned it on the women. I don't understand that part, because as a man, you have to own up to your shit, sir, and we have a problem as men, dog. Like we hate everything, dog. We got gay people in our family. We hate them motherfuckers, right? I have a problem with that,
That's
because
a
you love the
seashell.
motherfuckers before they came out the closet. You love them to death before they came out the closet. You heard
You
me?
did.
So, like, what
It's
the
okay.
fuck is the problem here? Toxic masculinity is a thing, dog. We gotta goddamn adjust, man, to a certain extent, man. Listen, man, look, women are coming into power. This LGB, this ABC community, the alphabet community, yeah, that shit is coming into power and all that. And us as men, man, we trying to fight all that shit like these white people trying to fight black people coming into power. And at the end of the day, man, look,
Let's go, bro.
you gonna be for your woman or you ain't.
Okay.
That's all it is about that. Toxic masculinity. That's what we talking about, right? We talking about
That's
toxic
what we talking about, bro. That's what
masculinity.
we talking about.
We ain't talking about a woman trying to be masculine. That's a whole nother topic. We talking about what we talking about right now. And niggas keep trying to turn that shit on these women, dog. We talking about us right now, cuz. We talking about us as men right now. How we act, how we do what we do. That's what we talking about. And I'm watching my brothers, man, trying to turn that shit on the women. It's a certain topic we talking about right now. That's all we talking about. And niggas is trying to turn that shit on the women right now. I don't understand what's going on in this conversation. The caption says it speaks about toxic masculinity. Why are we talking about toxic femininity?
That's just how the things roll here in the counselor's corner. Sometimes it goes to another direction. But I understand what you're saying. The focus should simply be on our behaviors. Should be on our behaviors. So I understand and respect that.
I agree with you, new guy.
Somebody got their
What's your
hand up.
name, darling? I
But
don't
go
want to
ahead,
call
Yeah,
you
let Ronan
guys.
get in there.
I
Ronan.
don't want to call. What's your name, sweetie?
But appreciate you, Chris, with your feedback. Appreciate it.
My
The
man's got
raw
his hand up. I
feedback.
see you over there on my TV. I got you on my TV. I had to mute my shit, but I see you, sir. I see you, fams. I see you.
Okay.
I see
Oh
you.
my God.
Yeah.
Give me a minute.
Well, the reasons why we have conversations like this is so we stop as a community, stop playing accountability dodgeball.
Come
Where
on, man. That's what I'm.
now,
That's all I'm here for. That's all.
granted,
Ain't no
there's
dodgeball,
some things
dog.
that
Yeah.
a lot of men nowadays, well, a lot of males, I'll say, are doing that are very toxic. They're looking very bad for men in general.
Come
And
on.
again,
Let's
if
talk about
we're
us.
not
Let's
talking
talk
about
about
things
us.
as an adult, give me a minute. If we're not talking about things as adults on both ends,
No, we
this
talking
is
about
what
us, my G. We talking about us.
I'm gonna get to that. See, the
No,
little
that's what it's about. We ain't about get to it. It's about that's what the whole topic is about. Us.
okay, well,
We gonna
let's
talk
talk
about
about
us.
us.
These women on the platform got nothing to do with how we fucking up.
Actually, yes.
We talking about us. We talking about toxic masculinity right now.
Well,
Women have nothing to do with that. They just want to know how we feel about it, so we can't turn it on them. Toxic femininity has nothing to do with toxic masculinity.
Well, with all
What
due
are we
respect,
talking about here?
well,
I
I'm
think
gonna
you go
get
hand
to
in
that.
hand. But I'm
Well,
gonna
with
take
all
a
due
little quick
respect,
break.
I am not a professional pander bear, so I'm speaking in general. When it comes to coddling your sons and crippling them by doing so, this is where you get a little bit of the toxicity. When you have young men who are not groomed by men who, and again, masculinity is an evolution. Where you start as a young boy to a young man to an elder. It takes time. You got to have solid men and some female influence to sculpt that man into that. What we're not seeing is that, which is why in that absence, you're seeing instead of actual functioning communities that are thriving economically in every level, you're seeing these ethnic outposts that have all this dysfunction and chaos to this day. So everyone plays a part.
Look, my brother. Not to interrupt you. I'm not changing the subject. I don't mean it. Hold on, because I gotta address my brother, man. He's speaking something that makes sense, but it's not answering the question. But he's making sense. So the thing of it is this: what I think he's trying to say is society has built us in a way that where we're not allowed to cry. We have to be, a certain amount of rah and all this extra shit to be a man. That contributes to our toxicity. I think that's what my brother is trying
I
to
agree
say.
with that.
I feel
That's
like
not
that's
what I
what
was saying. I mean,
society
okay.
has told us that we're not allowed to be a certain way. We can't be soft as a man. You're not allowed to cry, fuck your feminine side, all of that. You did. So the toxicity comes from a nigga or a man. I'm sorry. Excuse my language, y'all. Excuse my language, y'all. Excuse my language. But it comes from a
So much has
man
been said,
trying
Chris.
to
We're
be
good.
what society told us we're supposed to be. We can't be soft whatsoever. And if you as a man want to be feminine, I see the look in my man's face. If you as a man want to be feminine, look, son, we can't rock with you. But for the most part, the toxicity comes from, as a male, as the way I see it. How we were raised. We was raised to be this way. We were. This is American Western society tells you, as a man, you have to be a certain way.
And that's
You
what I was saying
understand what I'm
earlier.
saying?
And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I meant when I said they had things that were written in already, that there are guidelines that society says you have to follow. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
But that's what I
but
said. But that's what I said.
at the same
And I think
time,
where
though, at
I'm
the
at, I think
same
where
time,
I'm
though,
at with that, I think that where I'm at with that is at what point does a man and it's strictly because we're talking about masculine,
no, we talking about
toxic,
us. We talking about
toxic
us as men,
masculinity.
and
At
as a
what point?
man,
Because we
we're
know that
supposed to
everybody
be
has a
able to
starting
take
point.
this
At what point
without
do you
turning it
get to the
on y'all.
point? Right. At
As
what
a man,
point do
we
you
supposed to be
get
able to
to where
take
you're
this.
taking personal responsibility the way that
Exactly.
we're asked to in certain things and say, okay, how I was taught, not right. What I've experienced, not normal. Because that's what I've had to do as a woman. I was taught a lot of things
As a human
that were
being, as
incorrect,
a human being,
inconsistent. And at a certain point, I had to get to an age where I was like, okay, I
we're
can no
all
longer blame
raised
my
on
mother. I can no
some
longer
foul
blame my father.
principalities.
I can no longer blame anybody else because I have to go by my own experiences. So I felt like that's where he was coming from with why can't we just say we recognize that this exists, that men are acting like this, and when do we hold ourselves accountable? I
That's
could be
all
wrong.
I'm
I
saying.
think
Like
that's what he was saying.
I'm watching this whole series, right? And every time it pops up, my brothers turning on my sisters. As if, don't get me wrong, chivalry is there for a reason.
Thank
It
you.
died. It died.
It is.
It got killed. Women killed it.
It's
Chivalry
now you guys gonna share.
Whoa. Now that's
We killed it because we did
that's a
not make
major
you guys
shift.
do
That's
it
a major
anymore.
shift, Chris. That's a major shift, Chris.
Enablers.
That's a major shift, Chris.
Hold on.
Still,
Hold on.
I'm just making
Here's the
a
thing.
small.
Here's the thing. I'm a woman that's saying that I don't believe that chivalry is dead because
That
number
shit is
one,
murdered.
I
That
know
shit
that
is murdered.
when
It's
men
murdered.
are
I hold
chivalrous
doors
to
open.
women,
I
that doesn't
open
come with
doors and
every
hold. Ask
woman.
my wife. I'm chivalrous as hell.
Listen,
I'm chivalrous to the
a dude
motherfucker,
just
but
broke
it
his neck
died.
at the gas
It
station
died
yesterday
from
to
you
open my
single
door.
women
Chivalry is
believing
not dead.
that y'all could do what.
Chivalry is not dead.
I mean, from opening the door one
Chivalry
occasion
is not dead.
The thing of it is, what all I'm saying is, nigga can't turn the conversation on the women, but at the same time, women gotta take accountability for certain shit. That's all I'm saying.
Everybody, this is all we talk about.
I don't have an
Accountability.
issue with that because I've said that before. That if a woman goes around
My
saying
wife's
that
trying to call
she
me
doesn't
right now.
need a
She's like,
man,
nigga, you need to shut the fuck
women
up.
that go
She tried
around
to
that's
call me.
talking
She's
about
like,
how
I
they
ain't
don't
answer.
need
She's
men,
like, nigga,
this
shut the
is why
fuck
doors
up.
aren't being opened for you. This is why men aren't treating you. Because if you're walking around with the moniker that you don't need men and that it's not important and you could do it all by yourself, absolutely. That is something that would stop a man from doing those things for you. But
No,
what
but
I'm
I'm just saying,
saying
I
is
will hold
it's
the
there
door
for
open for
those
a woman,
people
right?
because it's not dead. I don't believe that men don't want to do those things. I believe that they're going to pick and choose
Respect
who
for
they
my
treat like that in the
mama.
same
You
way that
understand
women
what
are
I'm
going to pick
saying?
and choose who they treat in a certain way. So
Nah, but
yeah,
I
we
do
take
things
our
out of respect for
accountability,
my
but
mom.
we're still
Listen,
at what point
I
do you take it for
absolutely,
yourself? At what point are you taking
I
responsibility
absolutely understand.
for your actions?
I do think chivalry ain't 100% dead. I ain't what I'm saying. But I'm
I
saying
understand
that
what
my
you're trying to say.
Not
generation
dead.
my generation has a responsibility in the murder of chivalry. Y'all killed it.
Now, I can say we
I
have
got
been
to hold the door
enablers of
open
it.
for my
We
woman.
have probably to a degree.
My woman can't get in the car without me opening the door for her.
So it ain't dead.
She could do it. But I'm gonna make sure I do it. I'm gonna run around the goddamn car before she touched the door. If we going into an establishment, she won't touch that fucking door. It's not gonna happen.
Well, let
You know what I'm
me,
saying? But
Chris,
at the end of the
let
day,
me say this to you.
nah, you can't. I can't let you nothing because I'm trying to make a point here.
Mr. Chris,
I
Mr. Chris,
know,
can I
Mister. No, ma'am.
Can I
Man,
help
I
you?
don't know your name, but you know my name.
Just,
But the whole thing
I heard
is,
somebody call it. I
I'm
thought
making
the
a
other
point
guy
here.
was named.
I'm making a point here, and I need you not to. I'll let you talk.
What I
So I
was
need you to
trying
let
to
me talk.
say, what I was
I'll
trying to
let you
say is I
have that.
actually
He's
I'll
been
let
agree
you
with
had his
what you're
hand up for a
saying.
long
do it.
time.
That's
Yeah,
why
Book of
I
Roman
chivalry
got
has
Still
been
got his hand
murdered.
up.
Because women feel like they could do what you're doing right now.
and I agree with what you're saying. There are
Chivalry
some
is
women,
murdered
especially those
by women
ones.
of my generation because you feel like you, a nigga, ain't got no room to speak as long as you got something to say.
Now, Chris,
I agree with
I'm
what
going to
you're
agree with
saying.
that.
I don't think that's what anybody said.
Shoot.
I
I'm gonna
agree with
drink to
what
that.
you're saying in that there is a wave of women who feel like I'm so independent, I don't need that.
I
But there are
ain't
still
speaking
women.
on that. I ain't went
There are
there. I
still
ain't
women
going there at
who
all.
like the
I'm
chivalry.
not even
I
going
like it.
there. I'm
So
not
my
going
husband
there.
opens doors. So my husband opens doors for me and carries the bags and things like that. Chivalry is not dead. But I
No,
do
it
get
ain't
what you're
dead, but
trying to
it's
say
been
when you
murdered.
say
It's
women
been
feel
murdered.
this.
If it ain't your husband, nigga ain't doing it. Get
That,
real
Yeah, they
about it. If
do.
it ain't your
What's his
Ronan,
husband,
name?
nigga
What
don't
did
know
you have to
you.
say?
If
What's
You
his
had
it,
your
name?
hand
hey,
up for a
listen,
Yeah.
while.
I'm a different nigga, man. I don't care who
Obviously,
it
yeah.
is. I will hold the door open for you if I'm going in and you're behind me. I'm a different nigga. But don't get it fucked up. Chivalry has been murdered by the women of my generation because y'all feel like what you've been raised on, you can do what the fuck you want to, and we're supposed to accept it. So don't get that part fucked up. Don't get that part fucked up.
So are we turning it
That
on women?
tickles
Are
Anita.
we not
Let the
turning
Book
it?
of
Hey, what's
Ronan
gonna
have a.
happen here?
Let the Book of Ronan. Let the Book of Ronan. He had his hand
Go
up for a
ahead,
while.
Ronan.
Then push it back to her.
Am I lying though? Am I lying?
Yeah, sure.
Stop me when I'm lying.
Right now.
Right now, go ahead then. Go ahead. Because society told me one thing. All these women is princesses and we're supposed to take care of them hand and fucking foot as a man.
Uh,
So stop me when I'm lying.
ladies and gentlemen, this
My
is why I
generation
raised
has
my
shut that
hand
shit
to
down.
be respectful. But again,
My generation shut that shit down, son.
All right, Chris, we got somebody else that needs to speak. He's
okay,
been had his hand up for a while now.
okay.
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Now
I disagree with what my man was saying,
That's
but at the
okay.
same
that's
time,
good. But the
y'all
thing is, like,
disagreeing with what I'm saying, and I
All
understand,
right,
and I
Chris,
can't
somebody else
trip.
needs to speak now.
Yes, ma'am.
not any
Okay,
time
teacher.
did I dismiss accountability from the men at all. Not any time. I know you took it in a Hennessy direction, wherever it went. But
He said they
Not a
did it
Hennessy
not any
direction, but
time did I
I
delve
watched
in.
several of these things, and y'all keep turning on these women,
I,
and I
I
don't
see.
like it. But
But
they do have to
This
take
is first time
accountability.
on here
There's
though.
yes,
accountability that they have to take, but at the same time, y'all be doing the most, man, when it comes to these women. I seen it, son. I seen it. Monkey ass and all kind of shit. Y'all be going in on
Ooh.
the women, dog.
Ooh, so you watched
Oh,
that
oh,
episode.
Yeah.
Lord,
Okay.
I was
Okay.
watching. So, hey, man, y'all niggas get out of line sometimes on the women, but at the same time, they do need to be held accountable for what the fuck they doing. But at the same time, shit.
is that,
Chris.
Y'all
ladies and
going
gentlemen, is that what I've been
in,
saying the
dog. Y'all
whole
be going
time?
in, dog. Y'all be
Yeah.
going in on the wrong.
Big Chris, Big
let the
Chris.
other guy
Let
talk.
the Book of Ronan get his
All
words
right,
in.
Chris, let somebody else speak.
All right,
I,
let me shut the fuck up. But it's
again,
not Hennessy, it's vodka. So get that right. But go ahead.
okay, well,
All right, next.
Go ahead.
Next.
after
In the
14
vodka.
people, 4 locos later, that's what I've been saying the whole time. Nothing different. Just short and simple. Accountability on both ends. That's what the whole accountability dodgeball analogy was. Us sitting there throwing all these so-called facts at each other, and we're getting nowhere. At what point? It's
True.
about men and women holding themselves and each other accountable. being respectful to each other and for each other. Chivalry isn't there because I still do it. It's just when certain individuals promote traits that are unbecoming of chivalry, it never happens. The same thing with protection and provisions. So again, when the social contract is broken to an extent, some individuals are going to keep it moving. But there are others who are looking to work with those people on the same page. That's the vetting process. But again, no Hennessy shots taken.
Well,
That's
you
just
know,
all
when
I
you
was
say
saying.
things, when you say things like these men are kind of produced by mothers who coddle their sons. I mean, is it not? Is it so hard to believe that a man is coddling his son as well? That's where the division comes in at. So
No,
that's the that was one of the problems. But
well,
what I
again,
really want to know is
okay.
what you men feel about a man being able to just take what he wants from his wife no matter what she feels. That's the part, because I know that was one of those, your body is not your own thing. I want to know about that. Let's talk about that.
Okay. The first part
You mean what we were talking about with, with husbands that believe that their wives don't have the right to say no to them? Is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's
I'll attack the first part. First of all, accountability isn't gender specific. That's what I meant. And two, in a marriage, again, if you have that established boundaries and respect, that's what you're supposed to hold accordingly. I don't have to have to. I'm not married, but say it. If she ain't feeling it, cool. I'm not tripping. I don't have to force anything. That's just how I personally see it. Now, other men might see it other way, but I'm not going to force an issue unless it gets out of control. Then we have to discuss it. But again, that goes into having systems, order, and structure in the house. If there isn't, there's not. I mean, there's widespread chaos set to happen.
Yeah, I'm not about to steal no coochie from nobody or anything like that. It's not.
not cool.
I don't even understand. I don't even understand. Even if you married, if a woman doesn't feel like having it or whatever the case is, there may be some repercussions to that. But I'm not about to just take it. You my wife. You got to sleep with me. What pleasure do you get off of that? What
do you
pleasure
mean
you could get?
repercussions?
What repercussions? I would like to know.
You know what the repercussions are. Y'all know what the repercussions are.
asking you
What,
because
your
it shouldn't be
silent treatment?
repercussions
Oh,
at
no,
all.
I know
Well,
what he means.
hold
I
on.
know what he means by
Yeah.
repercussions. Since you won't
Hold
give it to
on.
me, I'm going to go outside and get it.
I ain't say it. I ain't say that. But I'm
That's
just
what you
letting
meant, though. That's what repercussions are. Because you won't give it to me in our house, I'm going to go outside and get it from somewhere
Well,
else.
hey,
Let's be frank. That's what that means.
hey, this is the thing. There are several different repercussions that can come on the extreme of it. It could be, hey, if you don't give it to me, I'll go get it from somebody else. But in most situations of men that actually think this way, because I dated someone who thought that way, and when it came out, that was the last date we went on. But when you have a person who says you can't tell me no, the extreme of that is if you're taking it from your wife, you're raping her. Like if you're taking
Right.
it because you don't feel like she has a right to say no to you, then that's called rape. And there are some states that does not recognize that. They do feel that you cannot say no to your husband. What's up?
Correct.
Courtney?
Actually, that's not correct. Since 1993, it has been illegal to rape your wife in all 50 states.
Thank you. Thank you.
You ain't about to rape nobody.
Thank you.
The new guy, stop
There
raising
shouldn't
your
be no
hand. Don't you know that
repercussions
we
if
all
somebody
just start
doesn't want to
talking?
do it. They don't
Just
want to
start
do it.
I just
talking, new
asked him.
guy.
I just asked him what he wanted to. What was up? I saw his hand up.
At
Well,
one point, it was legal to beat your wife on
Yes.
the courthouse steps in Louisiana. Is that
Yes,
that
that actually
Still on the
was
book.
that was
something
legal?
that was allowed. You could beat your wife on the court steps.
It was called the rule of thumb. The
Yes.
rule of thumb stipulated that is you could beat your wife, and emphasis on loosely, very loosely, the term beat with a stick, provided that it was no longer than your thumb and no wider. That's where the rule of thumb comes from.
Cool.
Crazy.
So
Yeah,
Let
that
me
shit
tell you, them
crazy.
sticks was not. Them sticks were way
Ronan, you
longer
had
than
something.
Jeff and thickers, but we'll leave that alone.
Ronan, you had your
But
Okay.
hand up.
that
What's
in
up,
and of
darling?
itself is toxic as hell. What makes you
Oh,
think that I
hold
should
on.
not be able
Wait
to
a,
speak
hold
over
on.
my own
Wait.
body?
What
Don't
is
tell me to
toxic
hold on.
Swap your
masculinity?
tea. Wait one
At the
moment.
end of the day, the question is, what is toxic masculinity?
I'll address that,
All
Chris.
right,
Scorpio
Ronan,
T.
you can go.
Go ahead,
The
Ron.
question is, what did Ronan have to say?
No, I'll defer for right now. Go ahead.
Because we can have this discussion on toxic femininity.
I'm still
You're not
not
having that
understanding, like, if
conversation.
a woman
To
says
mute
no,
yourself.
why is there repercussions at all?
toxic masculinity.
I mean, are you
Well,
joking or are
as
you
far
for
as
real?
repercussions, I mean, here's the thing. For me, when I say repercussions, it's something's gonna happen. So here's the thing. Let's just be real. If you're married and your husband is coming to you, because he wants sex from you, I don't know how long you can tell your husband no before you expect something's gonna happen. Because either we're gonna give a reason as to what that no is, so that we can fix it and get back to it. Or at some point, your husband, if he's not screwing you, he's going to want to use his dick with somebody. So, just logically speaking, I don't get where the logic is to keep on withholding from your husband. Like I said, now here's what I do understand. When a woman is not getting what it is that she feels that she needs to get, sex is one of the things that we will withhold because it's what you guys like. To me, when that goes way too far, is when, okay, guy comes to you, he's asking you what the problem is. What's the issue? You either hitting him with, I don't feel like talking about it. You should already know. We already did. Whatever the excuse is that you're hitting him with as to why you're not going to talk about it, and he doesn't get to use his dick with you, that's why at some point there's going to be a consequence. There's going to be a repercussion. There's going to be something that's going to happen because men like to use their dicks. And if they're with you, they like to use it with you. And so if they're asking you for it and you're not giving it to them, there's something, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So that's why that's just like if your husband tells you no about something, something's going to happen. You either going to go out and get it on your own. You're going to find another way to get it. So I don't look at it as a bad thing when somebody says, well, be careful what you say because there's going to be repercussions, because there are repercussions for everything that we say,
Right.
everything that we do. If you're not putting out to your husband,
So
then
when
yeah,
she tells
I'm
him
not
no,
really
when she
sure.
tells him no, or he tells her no, and she go out there and get what she wants, then he knocking her upside her head because he feels like that was a disrespect. The problem for me is it's supposed to be a two-way street. If you don't feel like giving up the deep, fine, no problem. I'm not gonna run out the door and go find somebody who will. There's a difference in that. The simple fact that you think that I should not be able to say no about my body, but you can say no about yours and it should be accepted is a whole toxic mentality for me.
Well, let me say this. Some of the examples that was used, it wasn't so much sexually. It was like making negative or dismissive comments about what you wear before you leave the house. Like that stuff is toxic. Like, where the hell are you
So when
going
you
with
say
that
negative,
on?
Dave, what do you mean? Like, oh, that's ugly, or
Yeah, like,
what do you
shit,
mean?
your ass may be too big for that. Why you going out? Why are you wearing that? You doing too much, or whatever the case is.
Ain't enough
Things
fabric.
like that.
A little
Yeah.
bit classy.
But see, to me, that's not toxic because her ass could be fat in it. To me, what toxic would be is you ain't going out in the house like in a controlling way. If somebody is saying, because we rag on Dave, we rag on you about your sweater, about all this stuff, but a lot
I
of
don't give a
listen,
damn.
I'm trying to make a point. What I'm saying is that we talk about that stuff too. Women talk about those things too, how their man looks. So to me, just
Let me say
somebody
this
saying
again.
I don't
Let me
like
say
it
this.
isn't toxic.
Let me say this. If you're a woman and you say how I look, and you're a man, you say, yeah, I look fat as hell in that. Like, you shouldn't wear that shit out. Whatever. You too big. You shouldn't wear that. That's toxic. That's toxic. Yeah,
Right. And you
yeah,
know, and
that's
then
toxic.
and just to
Okay,
add to,
so
if I can
let
just
me
jump
give
in real
you an
quick
example. Let me give you an
regarding
example. Like, okay, so I'm top heavy and I got a little bottom. So I remember an occasion. Now I did my makeup, got dressed. I felt marvelous, and the guy that I was dating at the time was like, "Where you going wearing that? You ain't got no business wearing that. You got a man, nigga. I did not get dressed for you. I got dressed for me. I feel fantabulous." So I felt like there was some super toxic control and stuff. Like, dude, you just say that you appreciate the way that I look instead of trying to make me feel bad for how good I'm looking right now. I'm doing a darn thing. Be glad I'm attached to you and not someone else. So that's one of those situations in which it can be really become toxic because you know I'm out here looking good. And when I say like I'm top heavy, got the bottom and all that, I was looking fly than a mother. And I know I was looking good and I felt great. So for you to be able to try to tell me you ain't got no business wearing that, you got a whole man. You ain't a single woman. It ain't got nothing to do with you, dude. I didn't get dressed for you. I got dressed for me. So
but you
I'm
know,
just saying.
there's something
So was
that
he
Nerea
being
said
toxic or was
earlier.
he being insecure?
Right. That's
Yeah.
something I was
Well,
gonna say is like what Soraya was saying earlier, what I really liked that stood out to me is when you said maybe that's not being toxic, it's just being rude. You know, I think
right.
just if we're taking it to a level
Rudeness
that
is
it's
could
not.
be toxic.
Hater,
And that's
hater.
where, you know what, that's right. I agree with that. That hit me in a different way because I'm thinking, oh, that's toxic, but no, that's just being rude. And another thing I just wanted to touch base on real quick is or
Insecure.
insecurities. In her situation, he just being insecure. He don't he instead of him being like, oh babe, you looking good, you representing us well, you know, instead of giving a compliment, he's putting his insecurities on you.
And look here, the reason I'm going to disagree with you is because he was actively trying to get me to change what I was wearing. It
Okay,
wasn't
but
a
that's
matter of
fine.
him just being
It's not.
rude. It was
But
like,
every
take that on.
situation
You
is,
can't do it in public.
well, that's different. But I'm just saying, like, that could be a scenario as well. Like, sometimes we take it too far. But the one thing I did want to touch base on real back to about a man wanting to have sex with his woman and she's saying no and he wants it. You know, to some degree, there is some toxicity in that when it comes to some males, because some men do think that way, that are married to their wife. They believe that the woman is the lesser. um you know, biblically, a lot of guys that follow the Bible or follow different religions do believe that women are the lesser vessel, or the weaker vessel, and they look at the woman as just as a sex object. That's what you're there for. This is who you're supposed to be for me when you decided to marry me. That is the truth, and that's where there's times when um, women have to decide, are they going to deal with this or not. Um, and at times it's like, you know, if you're going to stay in the marriage, then you know they're going to step out and you just deal with it, because whatever reasons that you decide to deal with it, you stay in it. But then there's some women that say, you know, I'm not, you can step out, you can go and be whoever you want to be, and I'm out of here, I'm gonna do my thing too. It's all kind of things that can fall in there, but that does happen. That's what I just wanted to say, that happens often.
Personal example of what and toxic is marrying the ring or the idea of the individual, but divorcing the reality and the person you're marrying at the altar. That's one of the biggest forms of toxicity ever. That's what we're not talking about nowadays. There's too many people going to extremes about situations. We don't have conflict resolution. We don't have systems of where we can start having constructive conversations, like things like never go to bed angry. We don't hear much of that any day. We figure we can go to the store wearing a nightie, and because he said that's disrespectful, now that's toxic. You can't put those kind of extremes out there and think it's cool, because you are a reflection of him and vice versa. So we have to be adults about this stuff.
It's a
Well, but
conversation that you
being an
have
adult is
before you
also
get married.
accepting the fact that this is who she was when you met her. So if I was dressed with booty shorts and halter tops when you met me, just because I'm with you don't mean that I need to change that. If I'm going out in the nighty, then that's very questionable. But I'm just simply saying that this is how you met me, and I was good enough at that point. So now, because you think you're somebody, I need to stop doing what I'm doing and what makes me feel good. It's not about the guy at that point. If I'm dressing for me. Like I said, I'm top heavy. So if I go out and I'm wearing a shirt that got all my boobs out, it has nothing to do with my husband. I'm feeling great.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, it shouldn't be an issue because when you met me, I probably had my boobs out at that point, which I'm really not that type of person, but I'm just simply saying for
Yeah.
you to berate a person, and that's what happened in my case. He berated me for being dressed as I was, no matter how great I was feeling about how I looked. The whole thought behind that was, you're going to change your clothes because I said this is not acceptable. Yes, I'm a representation of you. You're a representation of me. So if you go out with your booty crack hanging out and holy pants on, I'm embarrassed by what you're wearing. Put on some real clothes and cover up your booty crack. But I'm just saying that there's levels to this stuff, and in toxicity is levels of toxicity. Some things are not as pronounced as other things are. So let's say he socked me in my ass because I refuse to change my clothes. That's an extreme level, in which case I got to introduce you to Smith and Wesson because we ain't doing this today. But the simple fact that you would berate me for feeling good about myself, what is that?
Well,
Emotional manipulation.
Yeah. Again, that's the thing what she was saying. It's like all things of toxic are not always overt. There's some subtle things. There's manipulation. There's all kind of things where
Very,
I'm gonna
very,
do what I
yeah.
want. I'm gonna do this, and again, when you lose respect, that's where love is the next casualty. So again, if I decided, she has her girlfriends over and I decided to come in the living room with just my gray sweatpants on. It's all not just
Now,
respect to the person
is that
you're
toxic
with.
or is that disrespectful?
It's both,
Right.
in a way.
Well, and that's what he's saying. Some people will classify disrespect as toxic, and that's what I wanted to get in here. The first thing we have to do is establish a fulcrum. And once we establish the fulcrum, and the fulcrum being what we all agree is adequate behavior, so nobody feels disrespected, or nobody feels like they're dealing with somebody that's toxic. And I think that's going to be virtually impossible to establish. It reminds me of Lady Liberty, who's standing there with the scales balanced, that she's supposed to be blindfolded. There's only one problem. Liberty, justice, and the things that we take for granted in America are based on the individual. And we're rarely going to find two individuals that completely agree on everything in every way. So what we have to do in this nuanced argument is come to some type of consensus to where we can say, okay, these are the things that we agree on, and these are the nuanced things. And the nuanced things is where the individuals who are coming together have to sit down and have a heart-to-heart discussion about those differences. And this is why I always tell people say I'm extreme when it comes to picking out my mate. That's for a particular reason. So those little things don't crop up and become bigger issues. It's just like the old adage, the straw that broke the camel's back. It's never the big things, because you always expect to have blow ups over the big things. It's the little things that you want to resolve, so they don't become
lead to big things, huh?
Yeah.
So what I want to know, Herb,
I
is
think it goes back to what Ronan said. Said that we don't have
Wait a
any
minute,
type
I
of
want to ask
conflict
him a
resolution
question.
skills.
I want to ask him a question.
Hold on, Scorpio T. Scorpio, I promise I'm not going anywhere tonight. I don't have to work. So let's see, I'll go ahead and speak.
That was rude, but okay.
It was a request. It was a request.
I said okay. It's fine, whatever.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Surya.
No, I forgot. I had forgotten what I was gonna say because I was getting geared up for, for what she said. So it'll come back to me like Tourette's, and I'll just
go ahead, Scorpio T.
It was it'll come back to me.
So my question is, do you ever think or ever see that some of those things that you feel that you put in place might lead to some toxicity in that. I remember when you were saying if someone moves your furniture, that's the end of the day for them. So I'm wondering if some of those things that you think you have put in place can be viewed as toxic.
Well,
Let me let
if but
let me answer that question in this particular manner.
Okay.
My home is my peace of mind. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So if somebody's willing to disturb my peace of mind, what are they telling me?
They don't give a fuck.
Do you want me to answer, or are you just that
Absolutely.
rhetorical question?
No, it wasn't a
Okay.
rhetorical question.
So if you invite them into your home and say this is your home also, and we move
I didn't say that. I did not say that.
Sound like
I said
asking
my
you
home.
a direct
I
question.
hold on, wait a minute. I
I'm
said my
asking you,
home is my peace of mind. If
and
an
I'm
individual
asking you
comes
a
out, notice
direct
I said
question.
my home. I didn't say our home. I said my home, not our home.
I'm asking you a direct question because if I remember
But you're
correctly,
changing the parameters of the
Let her
question.
speak, Herbert.
Damn,
You
can I get
can't
a
do
word
that
in?
What the
No, what you
parameters of the
mean? Don't
because
do
she's
question?
that.
What
changing
You
the
what
asked me. I
parameters
parameters
of
sat
of
the
the question?
quiet.
I
I
don't
question.
didn't say
understand.
anything.
You don't
Y'all
even know what
funny
she's
as
about to
y'all
say.
funny as hell.
I know what he's saying.
So
I'm
It's
is
just
asking
the
a
y'all. I don't
direct
parameters being switched
understand.
question.
up, so it's trying to go to a
I'm,
certain direction.
Correct.
I'm not taking it to a certain direction. I'm asking a direct question, and I feel like I have that right. When he spoke, I got quiet. Give me the same respect. That's
Okay.
all I'm saying. If you
Mhm.
speak, I'm speaking about directly. This your first time on here, new guy. I don't know your name, so I hate calling you new guy. But
Ronan.
on
Ronan.
another,
Ronan. His name
on
is
an,
Ronan.
okay, Mr. Ronan. So this is your first time on here. So I was speaking in relation to something he had previously said on one of the broadcasts. Well, this lady had relocated to come and be with him. And at the time, she came and she arranged his furniture, rearranged it, and he was not happy, so he dismissed her. So my question is, if you invite me to come be a part of your life, do I not have the opportunity to make it as good for me as it is for you? Yes, I understand that's your peace of mind. But if you're inviting me into your life, am I not afforded the same thing? Or
Good question.
No,
Good
you're not.
question. That's a good question.
Until I'm going to make this real short and real concise. Until we
A
are
good question,
married,
though.
it's my house.
But that's a good. Let me ask this question now that you're saying that. But you've invited the woman to move in with you. You're not married, and then so she now has to stay in the comforts of your whatever you have set up until you
Mhm.
decide to marry her. Is that what it is?
Mhm.
So that's
Yes.
what. See,
Yes.
I mean, to me,
Oh,
that's
And
just
here's
like
what we got to do.
but
Here's what we got to do, Lakeisha, because I know where you're going. Here's what we got to do. Sometimes we have to play a game called QA and OK. We cannot get emotionally attached to someone else's answer for what they have to do. What you can do is make a decision for yourself based on
right,
what you've heard to where you are not in that situation. Now, the first
right.
thing is, I thought that was just a scenario where he was like, he didn't kick the bitch out about rearranging his furniture. Now, I wasn't upset at him being upset about the furniture being
ain't nothing to be
rearranged
said
because
about it. It's just
let
sad.
me be no, let me be very clear with you. If I come home and my furniture is all rearranged and they haven't discussed anything with me, they ain't said nothing, I just come home and they done I'm gonna be upset. My only issue was the extreme response of kicking a bitch
that part,
out after you just had her move across
that part,
the water to be with you. I
right?
wasn't upset about him being upset. Oh yeah, we need to have a conversation because you can't move a
That
plant
part.
in my house because I got everything set up the way so I understood what he meant when he said my home is my peace. I can't get
And
emotionally attached to her not wanting somebody to move his furniture or not wanting the motherfucker to eat off his goddamn plate or now what. All you could do is, now that you know that, instead of trying to change what his truth is for him,
Right.
just accept it and say, okay, well, I don't need to be eating dinner with you because my fork might
Right.
like to find its place on somebody else's plate. If I already know that you're knocking bitches in the face about putting a fork on your plate, then I don't need to have a meal with you. It's
Right.
that simple. Because it's the same with us. If I don't like something in my house, I ain't looking for some dude to tell me that what I like or don't like isn't right and isn't convenient for him. I'm looking for him to excuse himself because this is what it is at my house. So we have to give other people that same respect. Don't come in my
And that
shit,
was
interrupting
literally,
my shit.
Shreya,
I'm not
You
gonna come
know,
that
interrupt
was
your shit.
you
literally
know what?
the point
But
that I was making was literally a simple conversation could have fixed that. And if I was the woman that was the recipient of that, I would have kind of been wondering, like, dang, dude, that's super extreme. Yeah, I got to get out after
But
I
see,
moved
me, I
here.
wouldn't have went in nobody's house
Understand.
rearranging their
Me
furniture. I'm
either.
not
I
that
don't do
type of
that.
woman. I
I
wouldn't have
don't
went
do
up
that.
in there because men are very particular about, but this is something that I know. So to me,
Right.
that's a foolish woman who's also trying to exert
That
her
part.
own portion of control, because you're gonna wait until some dude goes to work and you just gonna get like you pushing and all of this shit, like you sweating this shit, moving couches and all of this shit in somebody else's house. Like,
You don't think
you
there's
ain't
going to be
made
a
a phone
problem?
call. You ain't made a phone
Said,
call. You don't know if
moving
the cat
couches.
don't like being over in that fucking corner. You done
Wow.
moved a litter box somewhere. They don't know where it's at. Like, no, that's not a move that I would have made. So for me, a
Yeah, I wouldn't
woman
have made
that's
that move
making a
either.
move like that's an aggression. Like you've been aggressed. Like I, if a dude, I've been aggressed. Like no, that's not something. Like I said, for me, the extreme of booting bitch out. Okay, well, cuss her out and talk about it, but damn,
Right.
you ain't got to just give the bitch the heave ho about the furniture. But
But see,
I
That
do
this is what
just
I meant
moved her
understand that
earlier.
whole
you
life.
want your
Right.
peace of
Now,
mind.
But this is what I meant earlier when you
now
disrespect.
just for
Wait,
the
Chuck,
record,
finish.
her,
Wait a
I
minute,
wasn't
finish.
doing nothing but
What, what,
having a little fun with you, okay? I was just having a little fun with you because I thought that was very extreme. Just for the record, okay?
I'm an extreme type of individual, though. I have no problem admitting that.
But
Yeah.
you know what this brings to mind for me, and I'm sorry, I'll let you talk in a minute, Ronan. You know how we had that whole conversation about how you can't learn something about a person in the weekend, but Herb swears that you can? If they had ever went on one of those weekend dates, she should have been able to discern that he's an extreme kind of individual. And she should have known better than to move him with
Cause I
I'm
ain't
not,
never
again,
dated her, but I know better than to put my fork in
in
his
a
face. He
weekend.
has
You can
said
hear
that
all
shit a
about a
million
person, right?
times.
So how did she not know this shit?
you moved my
I'm
toothbrush.
anal.
It was
I
on
have
this
no.
side.
no,
I
I
would
get
have
what
going to get in here, but I'll
I
be
get.
the first to say
Huh?
I'm anal. Go ahead, Ronan.
No, I was gonna say I agree with you were saying, Herb. It's like I'm an all or nothing type of guy, but I let it be known. Like, look, there's certain things that this is what it is, and I find out where you're at. Now, after we had a discussion, you decide you want to ransack the place into your own image. There's a consequence that comes with that shit. Because again, like you just said, fuck what you talking about, fuck you,
They
and
didn't
I'm
have
gonna do
that
what I want.
conversation.
That's 3 strikes, deuces.
Yeah, but see, Ronan, the thing that makes it different is you said we had that conversation. He said she showed up, moved the
Yeah,
furniture,
in
and
that
then had to
scenario,
leave
she just
after you
showed
told her to
up.
come here.
Shit.
But I'm just
You
saying,
gotta
like
have
I
a
had somebody do
conversation.
that initial scenario, and I sit there and watch her and said, "What the fuck are you doing?" I'm getting comfortable. Well, cool. I took her bag outside. You got all the room to be comfortable you want. Because no one invited you to be here doing this.
Y'all so
You just got off
wrong.
the bus.
That
That's
that's
so
the 10th
wrong.
power.
I
I
don't
just
agree
think
with all men are like that. I can't.
I just
Well,
you
we
know
know
Some
it's
men
no
are not like
absolute.
that,
this
and
is
yeah,
what
that's
this
all
gonna
men are
bother
not.
all men.
I just think that um you know I think you said it, Ronan, earlier about sometimes I've gone taken to the extreme.
Yeah, far too much.
That the response or a person moving and I was on that. His response is extreme to kick somebody out for that because her intent was not, hopefully, I don't believe it was to be like controlling, but the intent was to say, hey, I had an idea. I think this would look good this way, putting a woman's touch on it. Maybe it was or vice versa, a man coming and
That's a
saying,
phone
hey, babe.
call.
I would be, maybe I think I had to I'm not even going to say I need to reevaluate. I'm a kind of like just a chill kind of person that tries to be like, oh, okay. I would have took it, to be honest, if it was nice. And I was like, I would have been, maybe if it was nice, if it maybe wasn't nice, I probably would have been. But if it was nice, I would have said, babe, that looks good. Thank you for thinking of me. Or, being kind to rearrange, because I don't care. I just want it to be cute. I don't care where it is for the most part. I don't really care about decorating the house like that. So I want him to be comfortable. I'm like this. I want to get comfortable, babe. We here together. Get comfortable, because wherever you at, I'm gonna lay there with you. Get comfortable with you. I just look at it differently.
But what I was saying earlier, when it comes to making a big move like that, like moving a person into your life, start talking about the things in order, like, look, this is what we do to pad the landing when you're here. We know it's a great deal, that a sacrifice. You came from wherever you came from to here, a new environment, learning new stuff. We have to establish things between us to keep things, make it a home, not just a house ready to fall apart. That's the thing. We don't talk about the need for constructive dialogue. And because, you have your boundaries, I have mine, but we have something to where, as we protect this house, we protect each other. We don't hear that conversation often. We just like, well, I got my shit here. I'm going to do this and whatever. No, you ain't. Not today.
No, it should be a conversation, Lawrence. I'm not gonna say you should have a conversation, but I'm saying if the conversation didn't happen, maybe there was like, okay, for their post, like there was a post in the council corner regarding a woman. The man went to work and she got all dialed up and had this food ready for him, and then he come home and he's like, oh, I don't want to have sex. And she was ready to go in, all sexy. Not the same thing, and it's like, okay, that was an extreme where he couldn't just gave in and said, you know what, you put this out for me, you did this for me. Let me just, maybe let me just let myself get a little relaxed, and then we can come together. In that same situation, like, okay, babe, I see what you was trying to do, but you know what, I prefer it to be a little bit more like this. Can we do it like that? It's about just being, instead of everything having to be an extreme. And I'm an extremist. I'm not going to say that like I'm not. I am an extremist. I go to the ends of everything, and everything is the worst case scenario with me. I'm just going to be honest. But I also have a side where I'm like, oh, babe, that is so sweet. Thank you. So I'm just saying that sometimes we just go too much to the extreme.
No, I get what you're saying. It's like, we're not always looking to get everything perfect, but we always give our, 110%. Because most times, I say 9.5% of the time, if I had a bad day and I'm coming home, she got that whole setup, I'm smashing. My day, whatever the hell happened there, fuck that. I'm home now. Okay, I'm good. Now, if his mind is like really bothered by something serious that affects the home, of course that's going to dampen the mood, because it's a level of concern, responsibility. If he's supposed to provide and protect, for her, he's got to do that for himself too. So again, we're putting on extremes and stuff like that, but in most cases, she's wearing, nighty and, everything cooked up there, the whole place smelling good. If he doesn't like that on a regular basis, he don't appreciate shit. I know me. I'm having dinner, and then I'm having dinner.
You damn right. If I done listened to me, if I done went through all of this stuff,
word besides nighty. Okay, I'm gonna need you not to
if
say
I done
nighty.
went through all of it, we doing it. If I done cooked dinner, so here's the thing. I was dating the dude. I'll give you an example. I was dating the dude, and he asked me to come over because, number one, I don't ever just show up at somebody's house uninvited, and it's not because I'm trying to be a great woman and all that stuff. It's strictly because I don't expect your monkey ass to show up at my house uninvited. So I'm not going to show up at your house uninvited. So I treat people the way that I want to be treated. I'm not showing up at yours uninvited, so you cannot show up at mine uninvited. So he asked me to come over, and I knew what we was coming over for, but when I had an agenda. I didn't want to waste no time. We didn't need to pour no wine. We didn't do any of that. When I got there, he was on the phone. And it sounded like that conversation could have been important. But I very strategically had nothing on up under my raincoat except my heels.
God
So
bless you.
when he didn't get off the
Real
phone quick
man
enough
is
when I walked through the
Soraya.
door, I dropped the coat. Please understand, I don't care who it was he talked to. He was like, when he turned around and saw me just standing there, how I was standing there with my shoes on, he was like, I'm gonna have to go
I'll
and
call you
call
back.
you back. It wasn't no long conversation. It wasn't no, yeah, bro. Click, and that was it. So if a woman is going through all of that she's going through, all of that stuff is in this scenario, and her dude doesn't respond in the way
Right.
that a normal dude respond, you have either gone past, he really don't give a shit about you. You done pissed him off to the highest level of pissivity, and even then they will fuck you mad, okay? They will kick you and be mad at you. Okay, so no, you got a problem, my darling, if a dude is
That
not
part.
responding to your
That
lingerie
part.
and your heels. And you need to figure out what that problem is, because that's the beginning of the end for me, is when we can't even have sex, the most base thing in a relationship. You don't even have to like a motherfucker that you have sex with. You could just be doing that just to get a nut off. So if we can't even conquer that very basic thing, we got an issue. I had a dude that he wanted to argue. I'm trying to get it in, and because, now he was somebody that I would describe as toxic. He had toxic masculine because he wanted to control that. Oh well, I don't think I'm gonna give you none because you been acting up. I said, oh, okay,
Jeez.
hold on. I said, oh, okay.
Why do
I
men think
sat
that they
right
can
on the
control a
edge of
woman
the
with sex?
bed
Like, I
and
don't
started
understand this shit.
calling somebody else.
Exactly,
What are
Toya.
you doing?
Funny.
Exactly.
Dude, if we gonna argue about fucking, which is, oh, we don't stand a chance, bruh. We don't stand a chance. And I'm about to call up real bruh to come over here and take care of this issue that I got going on. So you could go to your car and lament about whatever it was that you was trying to get, whatever you was trying to do. Then he was like, oh no, we could do it. Well, now the mood is on. I don't want to do it with you. I still want to do it, but not with you. So I need you to go on and excuse yourself. When you can't, when a dude is not responding to you sexually, sweetie, you have another problem. It ain't toxic. It ain't about that. He doesn't give a damn about
I don't.
what you got going on. And you don't need to waste any more time. You need to go ahead, pack up your little knapsack and
Yeah.
get your exit strategy prepared. Because
Well,
that's
she's
not
telling the truth.
normal.
She's telling the truth because I've done that before. To where she tried everything. Is like, is it me? Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't care. And she said something that turned me off. And she said like, well, it don't matter. After 10 minutes, I'm mentally elsewhere. I said, okay. So I started out for a good whole 6 months, and she was trying everything. Like, no, I'm good. And I didn't go step out or anything. I'm going about my business. I put my energy elsewhere. But since you're mentally out of there, I'm not going to be your personal commercial. I'm cool.
But let me ask this question about that. It seems like that there's this high expectation for men towards women to be this perfect, all-knowing, woman and that's not going to make any mistakes. That's not
You don't
going
exist.
to,
You don't
you
exist.
know, and exactly. But you treat them as that because why didn't you have that conversation with her? Or I don't know if you did or not, but did you have that
I did.
conversation with her that what turned you off? And did she try to rectify it? And if
I
she
did.
tried to rectify it, what did you allow it?
I did. I allowed everything. I worked, and she wanted to get bad advice from her grandmother, who was bad at men, and her mama, who was terrible at men.
Oh God.
So when I saw two or three generations of toxicity, teaching the young one like what to do, and she was doing it to the letter, it only made it worse. Like, you know what? Cool. It made me more distant. Like, I was willing to speak on it, but I seen where she was getting her information from. No, ma'am.
Now, see, that leads me back to my original question. when you guys see men that are toxic and this generations are toxic. I mean, you said you guys don't speak on it. So when does the cycle stop? I was thinking about that episode in I forget what the name of Tina Turner movie in which he was going hard on her and the girl said something to him and he slapped the dog stank out of her and her dude allowed that. So I'm like, at what
All of
point?
his friends
At,
allowed it because all the band members were there when he was doing things to her. It got to a point where he wasn't waiting until anybody
I was
left the
talking
room.
about specifically in which he smacked the friend, not when he smacked Tina.
Okay.
But I'm
Yeah, that
asking, at
was
what
in the middle
point
of
do
the diner, if
men
I'm not
speak up on
mistaken.
that? Huh?
Slapped her in the middle of a diner with everybody
Right.
watching.
Yeah, and all the men
Right.
were
So
there.
at what
Yeah.
point do men check other men? Or I won't even say check. At what point do men say to other men, dude, this mess is messed up, is not cool. You can't do this. Because I would think if this is my guy and he let this other dude slap me, I gotta shoot both of y'all now. Because at some point you should have stepped in and said something or did something.
Let me
I'm
let me
saying, at what point do other men say, hey dude, you toxic? This is not acceptable.
let me give an example of that. One of my friends, he had did everything under the sun to his woman. She finally had found her somebody else. So he found out she had somebody else. And one day he lived next door to me. One day I'm coming home from work, driving down the alleyway, and I see him taking all these clothes out from the house. And I'm like, and I stopped and I'm like, yo, what are you doing, man? You moving? He was like, nah. He was like, he was like, this bitch cheated on me, so I'm about to take all her clothes and burn them. And I had to tell him, and then he was like, yo, you got time to talk? I said, let me go get situated. We go for a ride, and we had talked, and I'm like, dude, what's that gonna gain? You burning all this stuff. Y'all got kids together, so you burn up her whole wardrobe. Now she taken away from the kids because now she's got to buy all of this stuff over again. And I was like, and you haven't always been right. So after riding around, he said, you know what, you right. I said, because sooner or later that's gonna hit your pockets as well. Because now she got to buy everything over again, and it's taken away from your kids. And he got it. He was like, damn, man. He was like, timing is everything. Thank God you rolled through here because I was about to burn up everything she owned. And I was like, so you're just gonna leave her with nothing. So everything, yeah, wasn't gonna be able to go half on nothing. She's gonna have to buy a whole new wardrobe, and your kids was gonna be lacking as well. So it's times like that. I'm not gonna say all men, but sometimes some men you have to step up like, yo, dude, you're making the wrong decision. Now you will have some clown ass guys that you burn this shit up. I don't give a damn. Burn that up, whatever. But when you think about the overall picture, the kids, herself, yourself, your pockets, someone has to step in and say, nah, that ain't the right decision. That's not it.
I agree with what he's saying because it happens more often than you think, but it all depends on the circles you congregate in. Because if you have like some goofy dude who's champion burning the chick's clothes or fighting all that goofiness, and people tend to gravitate to it, that's an issue. Because I mean, most of that stuff that happens, that scenario he said, it happens. You just don't happen to have a camera to follow what happens to it. We pull brothers off to the side. I do this every day as an Uber driver because I've stopped a few guys from doing something drastic. He kept telling his whole story, and I had it pointed to him. I said, "Well, you're still the author of this, so you have a choice. You can do what you want. Well, I'm showing you everything that you putting up here, and what I'm seeing. If it makes sense to you, then so be it. But you still have to own the consequences. So you got brothers who don't have to do it in front of Iana Van Zant. We just do it as men, respectfully. That's the difference between men and males."
So is that something that you guys, when it's occurring, do y'all view this as some toxic type stuff, or are you just viewing this as, oh, it's just nothing?
We don't ever that scenario is kind of extreme, but I look at the scenario too because I've been in situations where I went to break two situations up, And for one, they were used to being toxic to each other, and they turned it on me. So you have to have a level of discernment and understanding what you're entering to. But some of them, that's just how they get down, But in most cases, you're looking to, keep that mess from happening. But if they've been doing this for years and whatnot, he goes to jail, she bails him out, and they start over again. Because I tell family members, I'm doing this one time, but if you go back to him again, don't call me. Because I'm not
So
doing.
the
That
answer
our
to that is
organization stay
so the
together for
answer
the
to
good
that
of the
is
universe.
yes.
They need to stay together and leave all the same people alone and just be and do what you do, because I've had that. I'm sure that we've all had that in reverse, where I've seen my girlfriend is complaining about a dude that's doing all this stuff, and I'ma hate him for you because you my girl, and that's it. But then after we done went to bat for you because we done got into an argument, all this stuff, and you still going back to this dude, what you want me to do when you complaining the next time? Like,
Exactly.
it's not nothing I could do, because if you're gonna stay there, that means you just want to rant. And I'm not the one to rant to, because I can't go back and be friends with this dude now after you done told me all the negative things that you want to tell me because you want me on your side for the moment. You don't want me on your side when y'all make up and he, attacking your clit the right way. But when he attacking your nose, then all of a sudden you want to come to me. And I'm just like, I don't have that type of time. I don't, if
Yeah.
you want to stay there, I think y'all should stay together. And y'all should just beat the hell out of each other. And y'all should leave the rest of the same people alone, so that we don't have to be, because nobody else deserves to have to go through that with you and your toxic ass. Like, no one else deserves that. So
Well,
if you
I,
found
I, I
somebody that
mean,
likes your toxic, you stay.
I agree with that. I had that
And let me
situation
and
in my
let me
very own in my very own family, where one of my family members was with a toxic person, and they were calling in the troops, and I had to say, wait a minute, homie, don't call us, because you know what the result is going to be. So if you're going back, you're going back.
Mhm.
But my question really never got answered. I was looking for a yes or a no. Do men view that as toxic from other men? That was what I was looking at. You gave me a scenario rather than an answer.
But that
Well,
was the answer. It was toxic. It was answered. I
well,
didn't
let
say
me explain.
specifically, but I'm like,
Let me.
yo, that's toxic. Like, you can't do that. So I think it was answered. You can't do that. That's not cool. It's a toxic
And
situation.
let
Whatever.
me see this. This is why when you guys ask me questions about my screening process, I don't avail them to you, because my tolerances for bullshit are so stringent that people will ask, well, how in the hell do you date? This is why I don't get into my screening process, because the way I screen women, no man on this planet could fathom the way that I do it. And it works phenomenal, but only for me. And I can't stress that enough. So when I'm speaking about certain things and I don't divulge that, it's not because I don't want y'all to know or understand. Everybody has to develop something that works for them, and I understand how difficult it is. This is why I always talk about your toolkit. What's in your toolkit? How are you developing that toolkit so it benefits you? Because we have a lot of people that are searching for answers in this world, and I understand it. Believe me, I do. But it's been the way that I have come up. The people that I've exposed myself to, like Ronan, we have a group of men that when we get together, we say, look, this is what you look for. You see this, run the other way. You see this, you hear this, leave it alone. Don't ask no questions. We don't care how fine she looks, how good she is in bed, how well she performs fellatio. If you see it, run. And women will hear that and they will say, yo, you can't do that. Wrong. The reason why they'll say that is because they emulate some of those in a very slight way. And to them, and they say, okay, wait a minute. If she looks that good and he's walking away from her, then I don't have a shot. And what it forces is what we were talking about, what Ronan said earlier, is accountability. So now you have to straighten up. You don't have a choice if you want a quality man. And that often is what deters a lot of people from reaching that next plateau. And this is not a specific to a male or female. We have women out here that say, look, brother, if you can't ascend to this level, don't even look at me. This is why a lot of people are. Go ahead.
Perform that great fellatio or before. If you do, you know, before she performs that great fellatio on you, that she ain't the motherfucker for you, or do you wait
I do.
until after the fellatio's over and then you make your announcement? I think that's the problem that women may have with it. Let's just be honest.
After
No,
you
I
done
know.
screwed her, and now all of a
Until
sudden
after
she
No,
ain't
hold on,
worth
hold on.
nothing because she
Let
done
me
did
address what
something.
Saria said. Let me address what Saria said. I do because I take sex off the table. Sex is not
We
even
already know
a
that you
sex
do
is
extreme things.
sex.
So
Sex
in the
don't even get
circles that you
mentioned
guys
around
are
me.
in, do they do that? You already explained that
Yes.
you're extreme and no guy on the earth is going to do it how you do it. So I need from regular guys, like,
But
do you
hold on.
do you cut them before the fellatio or after? Do you know before the fellatio that she ain't the one, like them signs that you looking for?
All you have to do, hey, look, Ronan hosts podcast with a gentleman named Black Ram out of Chicago.
Yeah.
These are the things that we discuss.
Well, I'm asking you. I'm asking you, do you do it before the fellatio or after? Why is that question?
Before. I'm telling you before. I don't.
Okay.
Most of the females
I move past you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Say that again, Saria.
I said we moved past you because you said that you're extreme and you know that no dude is really doing it how you're doing it. So I moved past you. I'm talking about regular dudes like Ronan, like Dave, and in the group that you're talking about when you're saying, hey, if you see this red flag, run the other way. Do you see the red flag before the fellatio or after? Because you said, I don't care how good the fellatio is. I don't care how good the sex is. I don't care how fine she is. So this is what I'm saying. Do you see these flags before those things are happening? Or is it you don't see you got to see what the mouth do first, and then we'll see if we can deal with this issue? That's what I'm asking. Because that's a problem that a lot of
Saria,
people have.
that's a very poignant question because there's a lot of guys who will say, well, you know what? I want to see what she's like first. And then what happens is they end up getting that chick pregnant and they leave her and the kid. And this is the cycle that we're trying to avert.
Yeah. Well, I say for personally, it's before the sex part. If she's really pressing the sex part, she's trying to lock it in most cases.
Right.
If I start seeing certain signs like, okay, she's doing too much, I know what you're up to. Now I'm cool. I'll pull back. Because that's where you get into trouble. When you have post-nut clarity, that's where you're in too deep most times. So you have to see those things before you get in the bedroom, because that's a whole nother arena that most people get beat up in more ways than one.
You know,
back in my, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's no, that's good. That's good to. I want to ask you before because I know it's almost 3 o'clock. I mean 3 hours on here, not 3 o'clock. 3 hours on this joint. So I'm just wondering how long we're gonna go. But the one thing I did want to ask is, may I ask, what are those red flags? What are some of them?
I look at how she thinks, how she carries herself, who she associates with. Certain things like if her certain conversations are self-abasing behaviors, or if she's out there showing things where she's trying to look for a man with a promiscuous wallet. Things about can I allow her to represent me in public, just in a short setting? Is she short? Is she short but sexy? Things that I look at like, okay. Like with certain women, if we're having a conversation and she starts talking and I squint like more than 3 times, it's a definite problem. I'm just like, can't do this. Can't do it. It's not superficial stuff. I just look at who she is as an individual and is the chemistry there or not? Because yeah, there's women who are easy on the eyes, but she could be hell on the mind in your life. So you start talking to her, assessing where she's really at. That's why I look at it.
Is there a time frame that this is happening in? I mean, because
I take my time.
I'm asking.
I mean, again, it's like when you see the flags, you take note. Now, one flag, of course, you're not looking for the perfect woman. There's no unicorn out there. But if you're seeing a series of flags in a short period of time, that's telling you get the hell up out of there. Like, pay attention. This chick is done. So
I'm a unicorn. I just want you to know. I just want you to know.
Listen, I ain't gonna come here. I ain't gonna come on here and act like I'm a unicorn. I got
You a
baggage.
unicorn for Big John. That's who you a unicorn for. Big John
Well,
done
in the,
already,
Got things to deal
That's
with.
what I'm
already
supposed to
hog
be a
tagged
unicorn
you.
for.
Take me as I am, or you keep it moving.
but see,
I'm
no,
supposed to be a unicorn. No.
the thing is,
Look,
like,
all jokes aside, I asked that question because I'm trying to figure out if you're addressing this in like a 30-day process, because it really takes time to get to know somebody. You know what I
well,
might
hold on.
think
Let me stop
about
you right
you
there.
on day one.
Scorpio T.
Why don't I ever be able to
I
finish a
want.
statement heard before you
Well,
start talking?
no. I
We
want
don't
to.
need
I
you
want
to
to
give her
stop you
clarity.
because
She
I'm just saying,
understands.
every time I talk,
it's not
every time I
clarity.
talk, you stopping me. Go on, Herb.
Y'all
You
be
felt the need
hogging
to
the
interrupt me.
mic.
Go on
Y'all
and
be
finish.
hogging the mic.
Because
Come on
the
and finish.
reason.
I don't never get to finish a statement. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why that is. I listen while people talk. And then when I start talking, it's hold on a minute, stop. Let me ask you a question. I'm telling you, I don't like that. Give me what I give you. That's it. That's all. There's nothing in the middle. Go ahead, Herb.
The reason why I do this is because you get down the road and I want to stop you before you get there.
So you
Kiss
can't
that
Okay.
listen to
tongue.
what I say after I get
That's
done.
funny.
I understand what it is that you're asking, and
No,
what
You
Ronan.
don't always
no,
understand.
you don't. No, you don't. You did that last time.
Trying to cut
No,
her
you don't.
off and
Hey,
Go ahead then.
letting her finish her thought.
we getting
Go
on
ahead.
closing point time.
Go ahead, Scorpio T.
No, go ahead. Since you already know the answer to the question I didn't ask,
Right.
feel free to answer it.
You can read her mind.
You were asking how long does this process take? Sometimes the process is immediate.
Okay, so what does it
That
happen
wasn't the
about for
question I
men?
was going to ask. That was just
So
an open
that's right,
statement. So
but my
that's the
thing.
point of
What
when I
about
say
men?
you need to let me finish speaking before and ask the question before you answer it. That was just my starting point. But since you felt that was the answer to the question, yet again, feel free to answer it. The question that I never asked again.
But that's why I said I wanted to stop you before you got going.
I ain't
Why?
never
know you
get
Why
to my
don't y'all
question.
why don't y'all table that for next week?
Okay.
We got
I
a lot
never
of
got to my
opportunities.
question. That's the point. That's the whole point. You keep answering things as if you know what I'm going to ask because you think you know. That was the opening point, which was going to be
Toxic.
related to something else. That's super toxic because I listened to you talk and I didn't interrupt you. Give people the same respect that you want because otherwise, now I've been nice about it, but it's kind of getting old for me after all these things. Now I let you talk, you get your point, you say what you're gonna say, give me the same respect. That's all I'm saying. Now go ahead and answer that question that I never asked.
It's already been answered.
No, it hasn't, because the question has never been asked.
You were starting to say, how long does this process take? Does it take 30 days or whatever? Correct? Is that what you said?
Incorrect. That question had already been answered. It had already been answered. He said that it occurs over time. I was asking a totally different question.
it could be
Okay.
immediate or over time. It's like there's no set time period. It could be right then and there, or it could be a matter of days, weeks. Who knows?
Mr. Roman, you had already answered that question, and that which led to for me to have another question that I never got to ask, so it couldn't be answered. That's all I'm saying.
No, it's
I'm
cool.
done talking about it now. Feel free, Herb. I'm done.
Sorry about that, guys. I had to get the baby together. She was a little
That's cool.
upset. I have a process just like that. I believe that everybody needs to have a screening process. There are certain things because of the age that I am and because I know what I like. I've same time, I think it's important to understand that everybody is going to go through a period of time where they're figuring out what they like. We are one another's guinea pigs. We are learning lessons off of one another. It's the only way we can do it. It's like the difference between reading a book about swimming and actually jumping your ass in the water. It you can get all of the technical knowledge that you want, but as soon as that cold ass water hits you, it's what you're able to
Different story.
retain. So your experiences have to take over. I have a definite screening process. It depends. It's how long my screening process takes really is dependent on the individual that I'm screening because not all of them are made the same. I like a motherfucker that can talk. Now, if you could say the right stuff, I might know. I might know with every fiber of my being that what you saying is full of shit. But if you got the right swag and if you could say it right, okay, bro, we can go ahead and go down this road. I got you. Let's, do that. But and and then there's another dude that wouldn't be able to say none of the stuff that this dude can say to me because it's based individually. I am shallow. I don't care. Because here's the thing when you look at me, you get to, your eyes get to do a little dance. I'm checking off whatever boxes that you got. So for me, my eyes need to do a little shimmy and shit when I look at you too. Because I shouldn't have to rely on how nice you are to me when it's time to get in the bed. You get to think about your fantasy about to come true, but I get to just think about how good you are. He's so nice. Because do you please understand the way that you want to stab a swamp troll when they cheat on you after you have given up and passed up all these good looking mofos and this donkey that you got with you cheats on you, you want to slit their throat right at the dinner table with their mama. Okay?
And just for
So,
the record,
what
Cheryl,
I
my
have
question
figured
had to
out,
deal with the screening process. So you're actually more on topic because my question had to deal with the screening process that I never got to ask.
listen, for me,
Sound like a
you
show.
manage,
Sound like a whole show.
listen,
Broadcast.
for me, I feel like with every single solitary person, you're going to have to put up with some type of BS because nobody's coming to you perfect. You ain't coming to them perfect. They going to have to deal with some of your BS just like you got to deal with theirs. For me, at least I'm going to be able to look you in your goddamn face while we doing it. Because if you a swamp troll sitting across from me and you talking to me all stupid, my response gonna be a little different. So for me,
I had a relative that used to always say, you don't know who this person is because you only see before you only see the thing that's not behind closed doors.
The
That the
representative.
behind the doors closed person is who they really are. So she would always say, when you close the door, if this ain't the same person, you really need to be doing some things. And that goes right along with that screening process that I didn't get to ask about.
Well, are we going into last words yet? Last.
Yeah, I think
I
it's
mean,
about
damn, Tina,
looking
if
at
you
my
ready, go
Gucci is
ahead and
about
drop
that
yours.
time.
And no, I just want to say that I learned a lot this evening. I believe this was very educational, and I believe I have grown from this conversation. So I do have a little quote that I want to finish with, and then I'm going to bed because it's way past my bedtime. Let me find my quote. I did have a quote there.
Now you don't rush us to get to the closing statements, and you ain't
I'm
even
not.
got your quote right now. You
I
got a
got my
list of your
quote.
quotes.
I had to click
Is
on
that
it.
what
I
just
had to click
happened?
on
Did
it.
I miss that? Did I miss it? Did I miss it?
I lost my quote. It's coming.
Bring us home,
Okay.
Lakia. Bring us home.
Success is the ability to go from one failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm.
That's a very
I'll
true
let that
statement.
marinate.
That's a very true statement.
I'm talking about success.
No, you
So
know
here,
mine.
I'll give you mine. I'll give you mine. I usually wait till later in the day. But I do want to say that on this topic, masculinity is definitely wanted. Toxic masculinity is definitely not wanted. I have done this whole broadcast in extreme pain. So I was determined to be here because I thought it was a conversation worth having. So I'm going to give you my last and usual statement: to thy own self be true.
Thanks for joining us and fighting through your
Yes,
pain. Appreciate
we
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now
Brolic,
I'm gonna
what's
tip
up?
my hat. Job well done. You know mine. Growth and understanding occurs in the gray area. Godspeed. See you next time.
See you next time. What's up, Brolic? You got one for us? Mama
Nothing
T
hurt but a
gone, so
lick.
she can't tell us to eat the dog.
Oh, she not there no more?
I miss
Nah,
her
she
too,
left.
just for the record.
Oh, okay.
Nah, she went back home to Jersey. So she
We got to come roll up on her like physically, all of us. Like we here.
she
What's
would love
good?
it. She would love
What
it. She'd be
what's
like,
good?
"Oh, y'all really want to do this? All right, let's go."
All you gotta say is the word. That's only a couple hours away from me. Just say the word.
Dude, she that type. Let's get the campfire started in the background. We sit around the fire and hash it out. Let's
Hey,
go.
hey, I would love for all of us to get together one day in real life.
I think that would be
Honestly,
pretty
we
interesting.
need
That's
to
a
work on
plan
that. We
trip. That
really
ain't
do.
nothing. That ain't
That would
nothing.
be
That's a
really
plan trip.
interesting.
Hey,
But
we can make.
I mean, what I always say, don't nothing hurt but a lick.
I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it.
You know you want to. You know you
I
want
want
to.
to so bad. I want to so
I
bad.
know you
I want
want
to
to.
Say it.
so
I
bad.
know, right?
I want to so bad.
Mona is like, what does
Oh,
that mean? What she got to say?
I'm intrigued.
I think it makes two of us.
so okay. So every time she says that nothing hurts but a lick, I always say, well, not if you doing it right. Like I had to lick that hurt, but okay. I know what
That's
you
how I thought
mean
you
though.
was
That's
going.
just my dirty mind at work. That's all. That's all. That's
I was
all.
honest mind. That's it.
Just not the way I do it. But okay. Oh,
All right.
but okay. Ronan, you got any last words for us?
Well, I definitely enjoyed myself here. I'll be looking to come back here again. And there's two quotes. Never allow your comfort zone to become your coffin. And it always takes a punani to expose and control.
In the
Hey,
Okay. QA and
much
okay.
much
Okay.
love and respect for that one.
Hey, you guys know what I say. Check yourself more than you check other people because your life will open up. You can only control you. You can't control anybody else. And fair exchange is no robbery. The problem is most of the time we dealing with thieves. So, try not to be a thief out in this motherfucker. Give as good as you get. And treat people the way you want to be treated. I want to say thank you to Dave and her for letting us, letting the ladies host it and take over this conversation. I think it was a great conversation. I think that all of us have something that we can take away from it, and so I'm just appreciative that we were able to do it. So that's why I'm at with that. Thank you guys.
Hey
And for
man,
my
hey, I think the thanks is ours.
yeah,
Because but this is why we implore the ladies because we can only talk from things from a black male perspective and prism. So we understand that the things that you guys deal with not only are they unique to you, they're unique to each individual because even though you have similar circumstances and situations, they're still unique.
Yeah.
And, that's what we want to bring. We want to bring that out. It's like when you cook, you use a certain thing to bring out the flavor of something else. So even though it may seem insignificant by itself, together it becomes potent.
yeah.
I
And for
want to say
me,
it was really nice to see these new faces on here. It's always a good thing when someone brings a different perspective to the table, and I'm always receptive. I think that grown adults should be able to have conversations, and we should also be able to agree to disagree and keep it moving sometimes. So I really am. It really is encouraging to see new faces come on here and give their perspective.
Yeah. And for me, and I love to see it. That's why I always try to push to get them in. So shout out to Ronan for coming in and Chris for coming in tonight. It feels good to grow
And that
and
other
have
lady,
different
David,
people. Who was
that
that?
other lady, she
Chris.
didn't get to talk. Yeah, it was
Oh,
another lady,
Gwendolyn.
but she didn't get to talk.
Well,
Yeah.
Gwendolyn is a part mainly in the counselor's corner. She always has her feedback. She just got bad internet connections.
Yeah.
But she's very vocal in the counselor's
Yeah.
corner on
Yes,
a
she
daily
is.
basis. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to dismiss her. She's very powerful in the words that she say. So I appreciate you all for and hoping this is growth, because these are real conversations, and we're gonna bump heads. We're gonna bump heads. We're not the Waltons, the Bradys, or whatever the case is. We're gonna have conversations. We're gonna go back and forth, but that uncomfortability makes you grow. So I already know that we got to finish this screening process out. It ain't over with yet. It has to happen. It's coming. And that's what I got out of
You
this.
have to ask
Posted
no
the show
questions,
that I told
okay?
you I wanted
Okay.
to do about the life lessons from the boudoir, the things
Oh,
that you have learned
Yeah,
that came
you gotta
from
do that.
your worst and your best sexual experience. Because I got some life lessons I'm taking with me to
You
the
let me know
grave,
when
Jack.
that show comes on. I'll be there.
Oh, we'll definitely let you know. It's all good.
Wait a minute now. Hold up. We don't
The
know if we like
stories
the way you
behind some
said
of
it.
these
No, I'm joking.
get the stories behind some of these, some of this baggage we all carrying around, because we all carrying around a certain amount of baggage. I'm interested about the stories,
Ooh,
because I got some
shit.
dudes. Because I'm telling you, fingertip test is real, and I don't leave home
I
without it from now on.
swear, my girl, you better say that again. That's some real life.
So Rhea, it's when you want to do it. If you want to do it Monday, or we can push it to Thursday. Some of y'all don't come on Thursdays. Y'all mainly
Mondays.
regulars on Mondays
I just need a time.
at 9:00.
All right.
9:00. If we have something on Thursdays, and that's usually out of my book, Cocktail Conversations, but sometimes I change it up based on if it's a topic. I say, okay, we got to turn this into a cocktail conversation. So I'm flexible, but I appreciate you all. I appreciate all of your insight, and we can continue to grow. Please share. Please subscribe to the Controversial Counselor page, and let's keep having these conversations. They're real. And there's nothing fake about these conversations at all. It's raw emotions, as you can tell.
Yeah, in addition to that, please get over to YouTube and hit the like button.
Go ahead.
What
What'd
was
you
it
say?
said? What happened?
Scorpio T spoke and I was speaking, so my apologies.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's okay.
I was saying get over to YouTube and hit the like button on it so we can spread the good word. It helps with the algorithm.
Yeah.
The what?
Will do. The algorithm will do.
Yeah. What happens is we're trying to grow Dave's subscriber base. Right now, I think he's at 210. So by the time this year is over, we're probably looking to have it somewhere between 500 and 600. And the way we can do that is by hitting the like button on the stream on YouTube. And what it does is it puts it in a rotation for other people to click on the stream and listen. This is why I always tell people, the people on the panel are the immediate people watching, but there's other people who will come from another stream and they'll say, "Oh, what is this about? Oh, they're doing a screening process. What's the screening process about?" Or toxic masculinity, which is a hot topic, and they'll click on it and they'll learn from us and they'll say, "Well, you know what? They regularly come on Mondays at 9. So at 9:00, I'm gonna be behind the chair and I'm gonna listen to their stream."
Well, I'm just saying, if we're gonna be doing all that, y'all need to send us cheesecakes and brownies or something. So I'm
Not cheesecakes and brownies.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go.
I'm joking.
I was gonna say, does it have to be fresh baked or can it be store bought?
I'm just joking.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
But Which y'all
Because I
should
got the
work on.
hookup.
Which y'all
That's
should
the
work on in
influence.
that pandemic. Us coming together, a meet and greet. That would be tight. That would be
Yeah.
tight.
Yeah.
Just know I'm bringing my blunts. So if
Hey,
somebody
bring
else
whatever you
bring it,
want.
then
Hey,
I'm
that's
gonna
what
hey,
bring
it
my
it's
is.
legal
gentleman
in New
jack.
York
I'm
I
gonna
now.
know
bring
Hey,
my
you can
somebody
gentleman
else.
spike
jack,
up.
That's what it
Coronas,
is. I'm
double
bringing my
fisted
blunts.
and all.
It's legal in
Listen,
New York. You can hey,
that sounded
you can
like
spike
something
up
all
wherever you
together.
want to. You can spike up.
I'm
Double
just,
fifty.
I'm just putting it out there. I'm bringing my blunts.
Double
So
fisted. Double fisted.
It's legal in New Jersey now too.
Oh, is it?
ain't nobody
Yes,
ever
sir.
listen. Ain't nobody ever. It ain't never had to be legal for people to smoke it. Let's stop it. If I gotta go to my car,
That's a
if we
whole
go to
nother
a place where
story.
it ain't legal, I'm going to
That
my
part.
car. It's gonna get smoked, is what I'm saying. So like, just
That's
be
a whole
prepared
nother
for that.
story.
And
That's a
whoever
topic for a
come
whole
into
nother
the car
day.
with me, you're welcome to, because I share.
I mean, you can always
What I'm
bake it in a
saying.
brownie, as I've been told. You can bake that in a brownie.
And I know how to do that too. Yes,
I'm
yes.
on.
And
You
put the
can
I'm
pretty
going.
honey
much bake it
gummies.
in a lot of
Listen.
things.
I'm gonna defer to y'all, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be toxic masculinity. I'm gonna defer to your ladies. Let's make it happen. Let's coordinate this because I know y'all got better organization skills than us. So I'm not gonna be that man and say, "Oh, we run this shit. We determine who do it." Y'all can handle this. Let's make it happen.
For the
You knew
record,
that shit wasn't
I
gonna get
don't
off
know
your
who
bed.
Mr. Greg Hopper is, but Mr. Greg Hopper, we ain't coming all the way to Niagara Falls. Y'all gonna have
Why
to meet
not
us
to the
halfway.
Cataract City, the
You gotta meet
one
us
of the
You
seven
gotta
halfway
wonders
find
of the
somewhere
world?
halfway in the middle
in that
or
order.
close enough to it.
Okay,
I
that
need to
we can
be
work
somewhere
on
where
that.
it's tropical. Why are we going to cold places in the first damn place?
That
If it's
part.
gonna be a meet and greet, why we can't meet and greet in the sun? What the hell? We got a meet and greet and
That part.
and jacked up weather? Like, yeah,
Well, I guess to start with,
I'm
we
good
have
with
to
the
let
cold
everybody know where our location at, and then work it out.
Okay.
Got you.
I'm game.
Got
I
it.
travel.
I'm
I'm
game.
game.
I
Got you.
travel.
I
Game
travel.
too.
So got it.
It would be nice. It would be nice. Let's make it
Hey,
happen.
hey, Brolic T, we just gonna all come to your house to cut the middleman out, okay?
She down in New Orleans, but I wouldn't mind going there either. But
Yeah, I haven't been to New Orleans. I have not been there. They keep talking about the French Quarter, so I'm meant to go down there with my little bit of broken and rusty French.
Go there.
John, come on.
Okay.
I'll
Okay,
take
well,
y'all
I'm
down to
on
Bourbon Street.
all right,
Okay.
so that's
So
for
we are
another
out.
time. We can make it happen. But appreciate you all. Everybody have
All right, man. Y'all take care, man. Y'all be
Talk
safe.
about it.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.